A young man's eyes flutter open. He is met with the sight of a girl with long, dark hair looking down at him. She tells him she was looking for him, introducing herself as Sanjo Rei. The man is bewildered, certain that this must be a dream, as it feels far too vivid to be real. Moments later, now dressed in a formal suit, he bursts through a doorway. Sanjo Rei is there, and she reminds him that even if it's just a formality, they are still siblings. He calls out the name Hiro, seemingly searching for someone. He stops, catching his reflection. He stares at the face looking back at him, a face he seems to despise. Behind him, Sanjo Rei gently takes his arm, urging him to hurry because their limo is waiting. In a sudden, violent motion, he strikes his own face with tremendous force. Sanjo Rei watches in stunned silence, her eyes wide with shock. The blow sends him crumpling to the floor. He clutches his face, a wave of intense pain washing over him. He had thought it was a dream and punched himself with everything he had, but the searing pain confirms his terrifying reality. Lifting his head, his nose now bleeding, the horrifying realization crashes down upon him. He touches his bruised face and wonders aloud, did I seriously turn into Hiro? The name echoes with significance. In a certain popular game, the character known as Hiro Sanjo was infamous for being the most hated nuisance of all. The narrative shifts, revealing the game in question. Everything for the score, nicknamed Yesio. Though not widely known, it was considered a masterpiece among Yuri game fans. The game was set in the Hojo Magic Academy, with the primary objective being for the protagonist to find happiness with one of the heroines. Unusually for a Yuri game, ESCO had a heavy focus on simulation elements. Players could spend a great deal of time customizing weapons and magic, a design choice the man now trapped as Hiro never quite understood. He remembers his former life, sitting at his desk. He had played for days straight, collecting every possible scenario and image, even reading the entire art book. The four main heroines and the side characters were so well developed that he had wished he could romance them himself. Despite its oddities, he felt the game's elements were well integrated, and the training system kept the story fresh and engaging. He recalled the one thing from the game that truly got on his nerves, a moment when one of the heroines excitedly asked another about going to the dungeon together, a pure interaction ripe for interruption. The source of that annoyance was Sanjo Hiro, the character who always got between the girls. His grating personality and excessive screen time and negative events earned him a terrible reputation. The player remembered wondering if such a character, treated by everyone else like a bad omen, even needed to exist. His thoughts then shifted to his own end. After finally achieving 100% completion in the game, he had left the convenience store, utterly exhausted. As he stepped into the crosswalk, a truck barreled towards him. He remembered freezing in panic at first, but seeing two girls in the truck's path, he couldn't just stand by and watch things fall apart. He lunged, pushing them out of harm's way. That was the last thing he could recall before his consciousness faded. Now, judging by his current situation, symbolized by the luxury sedan he found himself in, the conclusion was inescapable. He must have been reincarnated. As he sat slumped in the plush seat, a young woman across from him spoke his new name, Hiro-san. An attendant with slicked-back hair and glasses began to brush the young woman's hair, issuing a cold instruction. He informed her that the Sanjo family dinner was about to begin and warned her not to be disrespectful to the guests, reminding her that she was merely decoration. The man continued his lecture, ordering her not to open her mouth unless it was to eat. The player recognized her cold, defiant stare. He knew that based on her behavior that day, people would only attach worse labels to her. He knew exactly who she was, Sanjo Rei, Hiro's younger sister, and one of the four main heroines of the game. His mind filled with game lore. Rei's specific story route delved deep into the Sanjo family's inheritance conflict. And unlike the other routes, in this one, Hiro would act more conniving and lash out at his sister. He grimaced, recalling the original Hiro's fate, a swift assassination by Rei in the latter half of the story. He understood now that it was the original's own fault, but that provided little comfort as he was now in that very body. As he contemplated this grim future, the limousine slowed to a stop before a massive, brightly lit estate. He couldn't help but wonder if that particular death flag was still active. Inside, a pocket watch tumbled through the air. With a sharp movement, Rei caught it just in time, the metal jolting in her palm. His eyes fell upon her, and he saw no hint of affection in her gaze. It seemed the reincarnation hadn't reset her feelings. For now, he decided the best course of action was to play it safe and not get on her bad side. As he stood there, lost in thought, Rei approached. She told him to get a hold of himself, reminding him that even a symbolic appearance carried weight for a member of the Sanjo family. He was taken aback by her directness. Her words, though stern, sparked an unexpected reaction in him. He found himself thinking how kind and beautiful she was, perfect even. Realizing he'd let his thoughts slip, he quickly tried to recover, adopting a colder demeanor and pulling out a band-aid to seem more in character. He extended his hand, placing the small item into her palm. He explained that he was returning the favor for her handkerchief. Rei looked down, confused, asking what it was. She looked up at him, still questioning. He clarified that he'd noticed her hand was red and seemed hurt when she caught the watch, and she wouldn't want to attend a dinner party like that. Stunned by his observation, Rei could only ask why he would do such a thing. Before he could answer, another young man's voice cut in with a smug tone. He called it basic courtesy, declaring with a flourish that Rei's beautiful hands were meant for the future of their family. His comment drew the attention of the attendants. The man with glasses suggested throwing the cheap item away and preparing a replacement. But Rei spoke over him, her voice firm. She would accept it. Her decision left another young woman, standing nearby, completely surprised. The female rival observes the interaction, remarking that for someone like Hiro to indulge in jokes is a rare event worth commemorating. Her companion looks on, questioning if Hiro's gesture actually went well. He turns, a confident smirk on his face, and insists he wasn't joking. He then declares that paying taxes and protecting Yuri is the duty of every citizen, seemingly proud of his own logic. His bizarre statement is met with a deadpan stare from the female rival, who decides it would be a waste of time to engage further. Her companion bluntly suggests Hiro should see a doctor, but Hiro simply erupts in laughter. They proceed into a vast, opulent hall where a grand banquet is in full swing. Tables are laden with extravagant dishes, and a room is filled with the numerous members and guests of the Sanjo family. The sheer scale and luxury of the event overwhelm Hiro. His eyes widen in pure astonishment as he lets out a gasp of awe. He gazes around the room, thinking it's like heaven. He observes women openly in relationships with other women, considering it the most natural thing in the world. This, he realizes, is the world of Esco. The female rival remarks that there are men present too, but they are drawn so half-heartedly, they might as well be background elements like pebbles or carbon dioxide. She then adds with a hint of self-deprecation that she supposes she isn't much different. Elsewhere, another young man observes the proceedings. He muses that while Hiro may be the heir of the main family, it is Rei who will inherit the Sanjo name. His gaze fixes on Rei as she sips her drink, the band-aid from Hiro clearly visible on her finger. The sight irritates him, and he slams his hand on a table, wondering if this action will lower her perfect points. As he stands by the food, a small girl suddenly runs up to Hiro, shouting "Mama," and splashing his plate. Startled, Hiro immediately tells her not to call him that, warning her that her actions are dangerous. The commotion attracts a formidable presence. An elderly woman, identified as the great aunt of the Sanjo family and the true power behind the scenes, approaches with two attendants. She calls out to Hiro, who turns in shock. The great aunt begins to issue a directive, stating what he will do starting next year. He stood before her, awaiting the directive. With a sharp gleam in her eye, the great aunt delivered her sudden command. Hiro was to enroll at Hojo Magic Academy. He questioned the decision, asking why he of all people was chosen, but the great aunt silenced him immediately. Pointing a commanding finger, she made it clear that he did not possess the right to refuse. He was utterly bewildered. The great aunt pressed him, asking if he truly hadn't noticed that this was no time for complacency. His thoughts drifted to the academy, which he knew to be the main stage for the world of Esco, musing that any encounter with the main characters would surely be much later. His confusion was met with a flood of hostile memories. He saw the faces of those who despised him, their accusations of disrespect and pure hatred echoing in his mind. The little girl, held by a dark-haired woman, looked on sadly, admitting she had messed up. The collective bloodlust was overwhelming. The great aunt confirmed his status as an outcast. She spoke of mounting reports that he had begged for money from branch families and used the Sanjo name to make threats. He was so hated, she said, that no one would be surprised by his death. An image of a manic young man flashed in Hiro's mind, the true culprit. Even outside the game's script, this person was the absolute worst. She then presented Hojo Academy as the solution, a place where the Sanjo family's direct support would protect him. There, he could study magic, become independent, and regain his dignity. But Hiro saw the truth with sickening clarity. It was a lie. This was the Sanjo family's perfect opportunity to assassinate him, a plot point he remembered from the game. As he walked away later, he pieced it all together. The great aunt had offered her support, telling him to do his best while he still could, but he had no idea what she truly meant. Now he understood the purpose of the dinner. It had all been a prelude. He contemplated his grim reality. In the original story, his character had the same death flag, targeted by both the main and branch families. Rei's affection was at rock bottom, placing her at the murder stage. If this continued, the Sanjo family would kill him, just like in the scenario. He vowed to avoid that fate, no matter the cost. He paced his room, wondering what to do. The main characters were also deeply involved in his fated death, so he knew he had to make a move himself. In that moment, a shadowy maid swung a weapon down at him. He threw himself aside, the blow missing by a hair's breadth. He scrambled back in shock. "What the hell?" he cried out, wondering if the assassination squad had already arrived. Before him stood the little girl and another maid, this one sporting an eye patch and carrying a massive, club-like weapon on her back. He stood back, confused by the sudden shift. He questioned the maid about her purpose for being there, wondering aloud if he had somehow made a mistake. Internally, he noted that she was a character he didn't recognize from the original story, dismissing her as an unimportant mob character. In response, the maid simply offered an apology, explaining that his great aunt had instructed her to deliver an item to him. She presented the long, cloth-wrapped object she carried. His eyes widened in sudden recognition. He now held the item, realizing it was the support his great aunt had mentioned, a magic catalyst device. He knew it as the Kuki Masamian. Within the world of Esco, magic could only be activated through such tools. He also recalled a crucial detail. Obtaining this specific catalyst, Hiro's unique device, would set him on the corruption route, a path he had never taken for long because it prevented any romance with the heroine. He gripped the hilt tightly. He gave the sheathed weapon a test swing, already impressed by its feel. The maid, noticing his expression, asked if he had forgotten his own blade. He clarified that this was no ordinary sword, as its blade was formed by magic itself. Confident that the activation formula was still intact, he prepared for the grand reveal of its true form. With a flourish, he pointed the hilt forward, but only a pathetic puff of light fizzled out from the end. His confidence vanished, replaced by frantic frustration. The blade wouldn't emerge. He shook the hilt violently, trying to figure out how to check its status, but nothing happened. The maid watched his struggle, unimpressed. A closer inspection of the catalyst properties revealed the truth. It was an activatable magic orb with a weak light attribute, capable of transformation and support for destruction. However, its creation was just a simple sphere. He realized with dismay that the catalyst was basically junk. He concluded that the weapon was useless as it was. Faced with a mountain of problems, his first priority had to be reinforcing his own strength. Having changed into more practical clothes, he announced his new plan. They were heading to a dungeon. The maid, startled by his sudden declaration, could only ask where he was going. He turned back, annoyed that she was still present, and told her dismissively to go home or do whatever she pleased. Puffing her cheeks in defiance, the maid declared that she was off to have some fun, wished him well, and made it clear she was coming along. She rushed out the door ahead of him as Hiro announced his intention to go to the convenience store for the time being. Pausing in the doorway, she glanced back over her shoulder, her expression one of clear annoyance as she called him an idiot. He reached out and snapped her shoulder back, demanding to know why she would insult her own master. Then, his demeanor shifted entirely as he suddenly asked if there was someone she liked, leaving her utterly bewildered. His excitement flared, his face blushing as he pressed the issue, asking with sparkling eyes if there was a girl she was into. The maid could only process that this had, in fact, turned into a discussion about romance. She clarified that the insult was simply payback for him bullying one of her maid friends the other day. Calling him a fake-ass blonde, she declared she wasn't scared of him and dared him to fire her. He could only grimace, thinking to himself that she was always finding new ways to be the absolute worst. His aggressive posture vanished in an instant. He bowed deeply, admitting that no matter how you looked at it, he was in the wrong. He sincerely apologized and stated his desire to go apologize to the girl immediately, leaving the maid momentarily speechless. They arrived at the area Tokyo Management Bureau. As a guard at a checkpoint asked for their permit, Hiro noted the late hour and suggested they could simply arrange a meeting for the following day. The guard's tone shifted upon recognizing him as the heir to the Sanju family. A stern official confirmed they had been informed of his arrival, stating that no further checks were necessary. The ease of his passage made Hiro grimly aware of his family's influence as a strange, cube-like object materialized before him. Beyond the checkpoint stood a massive, shimmering gateway, a dungeon. These singularities had appeared all over the world, and beyond this particular door lay a new challenge. He had arrived at the abandoned station dungeon in Area Tokyo, a realm of monsters connected to another world. Having successfully gained entry, Hiro steeled himself, a small cut on his cheek, and acknowledged that the real trial was just beginning. Behind him, the maid offered a casual salute. He turns to the maid accompanying him, demanding to know why she is following him and what her name is. He points out that they will be seeing each other again tomorrow, so she might as well tell him. The maid, however, simply clicks her tongue in annoyance. She completely ignores his inquiry, instead questioning why he would even be in a dungeon, a place she deems pointless for him. She wonders aloud, with biting sarcasm, if he has grown bored of human girls and now intends to seduce monsters. As they proceed deeper into the dungeon's dilapidated structures, she asks if he is at Hojo Magic Academy. He confirms this, stating that she must have seen it as well. He then explains his purpose for being in the dungeon. He needs to hunt monsters to farm catalyst and gain experience. At his current rate, he laments, he won't be able to properly wield the Masamyun Kuki. The maid immediately points out a critical flaw in his plan. She reminds him that without magic, he cannot harm monsters, and to even use magic, he requires a magic catalyst device. Her words seem to jog his memory. Now standing on a bustling city street at night, he recalls that he did get a magic catalyst device and decides to check his status and his score. The maid suggests he could simply buy basic conduits with his score, but he quickly dismisses the idea, stating it's not an option for him. He elaborates on the system, explaining that ESCO converts all of a person's behavior, achievements, and social contributions into a single score. The higher the number, the better one's rank and the better they are treated in society. With a confident grin, he activates his device, bringing up his personal profile. It displays his name, Sanjo Hiro, and his level. But as his eyes fall upon his total score, his expression shatters into horrified disbelief. It is a perfect 0. He stammers, refusing to believe the number. He insists there's no way it could be 0, pointing to an entry in his activity log. A positive 30 points for promising to apologize to the maid for bullying a coworker. But as the log scrolls, the grim reality becomes clear. A long list of negative actions completely nullifies his single good deed. The infractions range from losing a gamble and taking it out on the maid to misusing the Sanju family's authority for gambling money, ruining the mood for a couple, skipping class, and even secretly eating extra portions of meals. He clenches his fist in frustration, confirming that his score is indeed 0. The maid with the eye patch expresses her disbelief. He explains the dire consequences. In this region, score-based payments are standard, making it difficult to acquire even daily necessities, let alone the conductors he needs. This renders his Masamune Kuki completely unusable. In response to his predicament, the eye patch maid questions if such basic weapons are even sold. With a grimace, he reveals a crude, nail-studded bat, declaring he'll have to make do with it. He notes that it can be purchased with cash from a convenience store and even deals magic damage. As he holds the makeshift weapon, the other maid remarks coolly that she isn't surprised his score is 0, considering his usual behavior. He snaps back, insisting that since it's not his debt, he's not okay with the situation, and that's exactly what makes him suspicious. Her gaze intensifies as she studies him. The person she remembers was a scoundrel who refused to train and would never submit to anyone. She finds herself questioning if this is truly the same hero she once knew. Turning to walk away, he remarks that his apology must have truly shocked her, but tells her to relax, as there's a first time for everything. She replies that she felt the same way when she first saw Princess Hyakuo, assuring him he'll get used to it. Internally, however, he sweats, questioning if he managed to cover his true intentions and reminding himself to stay vigilant. His vigilance is immediately tested as a small, armored creature wielding a sword and shield emerges from the rubble. He identifies it as a Butchnicht, recognizing it as a surprisingly tough foe for a first battle. As he and the maid observe the creature, the spiky-haired man watches from a distance, a knife in his hand. He muses that if there's only one, he can afford to take his time. But the situation quickly sours. The Butchnicht begins to glow with a dark energy and charges forward at an alarming speed. A look of panic crosses Hiro's face as he realizes the danger. His alarm is justified as more Butch Knights suddenly materialize, swarming their position. He cries out that they're spawning far too quickly, prompting the maid to calmly suggest a retreat. Instead of retreating, she vaults over Hiro's head, launching herself directly at the horde of creatures. She yells for both him and the other maid to get back. She moved like a flash, her blade a streak of light that carved through the monster's form with lethal precision. Her assault was so swift that the horde was decimated in moments, leaving Hiro and his companion staring in disbelief. He couldn't comprehend the power on display, wondering if they were simply dungeon newbies in her eyes. As the immediate threat vanished, a new figure appeared on a ledge above them. She questioned what they were doing in such a dangerous place and advised them to leave before they were killed. This was Lapis Cruet La Lamette, one of the 4 main heroines. The other young woman recognized her instantly, explaining that Lapis was a princess from the Elf Kingdom, whose wealth made the Sanju family seem poor. She also noted with concern that Lapis was not a heroine Hiro was supposed to meet before entering the academy. He tensed, realizing he didn't want to run into her this early. From his knowledge of the world of ESCO, Lapis was the #1 character for executing him on sight, recalling a time she had done so over something as trivial as eating saved ice cream. Lapis descended, remarking that she had helped without thinking, but perhaps didn't need to since he was a man. Using a magic catalyst device, she checked his profile and flinched upon seeing his score was 0. Even a nearby monster scoffed at the revelation. He scrambled away in panic, yelling for her to stay away because he didn't want to die. He asked if she realized how dangerous she was. Completely unfazed, Lapis smiled and offered to walk him to the dungeon's entrance so he could get home quickly. Her calm demeanor was unsettling. She stared directly at him and asked what exactly he thought she was. Flustered, Hiro could only stare back, lost for words. His mind could only produce one thought. She was an elf dressed like some kind of pervert. The thought must have been playing on his face. Lapis leaned in, insisting her outfit was formal wear. Before he could respond, his maid companion grabbed his head, demanding to know where he was looking. Hiro could only protest that he wasn't at fault. He listened as Lapis finally agreed to speak, revealing her score to be a staggering 30,000. With such a massive point difference, she advised that he would be better off simply asking for her help. Her tone shifted from advisory to zealous. She declared that if words were insufficient, she would personally train him, and commanded him to prepare himself. He found the situation deeply awkward. While he appreciated her playful energy when directed at others, being the target himself was another matter entirely. His companion, however, had no sympathy, chiding him for his cluelessness. Stepping between them, his companion formally accepted the challenge. She apologized to the princess for Hiro's apparent rudeness, promising to reprimand him later, leaving him stunned by her intervention. Lapis cheerfully laid out the terms of their duel. If she were to lose, a possibility she deemed nearly impossible, she would give him everything she had. In response, he stated his own condition. If he won, he wanted her catalyst. As the terms were set, his maid handed him a crude, club-like weapon. His eyes narrowed in focus. He knew she was a famous archer, yet her current posture and lack of a bow suggested a different approach. His companion quietly suggested that he should probably forfeit. A confident grin spread across his face as he replied that he was well aware of the odds. The grin twisted into a look of fierce determination. He laughed, confessing to his bewildered companion that he had spent countless hours grinding and strategizing with the singular goal of defeating Lapis. Unaware of his resolve, Lapis offered a generous handicap. He could use any weapon, make the first 10 moves, and she would not move from her spot. Before she could finish her sentence, he exploded into action, lunging forward with blinding speed. Her eyes widened in surprise, not at the attack, but at his oversight. She called out that he had forgotten his magic catalyst, acknowledging its high performance, but questioning the recklessness of his charge. His focus remained unbroken. He knew the catalyst could be equipped to his own blade, the Kuki Masamune, and he was determined to acquire it. He had to account for her quick reaction time, however. He charges forward, fully aware that a direct assault against her is considered a guaranteed loss. While her base stats are high, her proficiency in close combat is merely above average, not exceptional. He closes the distance in an instant, a confident smirk playing on his lips. He knows her character well. Lapis would never bring herself to shoot an unarmed opponent. In a swift motion, he grabs her arm while his other hand moves to her magic catalyst. With a distinct pop, a component of the device comes loose in his grasp, causing her to cry out in surprise. With a soft click, he leaps back, the component now firmly in his hand. Lapis, her expression hardening with annoyance, demands to know if he is mocking her and declares she will no longer hold back. Before she can act, her own magic catalyst vanishes in a puff of light, leaving her stunned. She can only watch, bewildered, as he deftly attaches the piece he stole from her to the hilt of his own sheathed sword with a sharp clack. He draws his blade, the Kuki Masamune now pulsing with the power of her catalyst. He looks at her, his expression intense, and points out her greatest weakness. For all her strength, she still freezes when faced with the unexpected. As the arena floor cracks and shatters around them, he leaps into the air, his empowered sword aimed directly at the still-frozen elven princess. The duel concludes. Sporting a small bandage on his cheek, he gives a cheerful thumbs up and declares his victory. Lapis is aghast, refusing to accept the outcome. She demands to know if her magic device was malfunctioning, but he confirms it was working perfectly. He then reveals the trick. The conductor he is using is hers. He explains that he borrowed it when he passed by her earlier, leaving her with his own defective one in its place. The revelation leaves her speechless with shock. She stammers, calling him a coward. He dismisses the accusation, stating that concepts like cowardice have no place in a real battle. He tells her plainly that she is the fool for underestimating her opponent and holding back her own power. His words leave her stunned and unable to respond. He held the Kuki Masamune, now augmented with her catalyst, and asked if she had any complaints. Lapis could only stare, stunned into silence. With a confident grin, he declared that, just as they had agreed, he was taking everything. He noted her generosity before turning to leave. Her face flushed a deep red, tears welling in her eyes as she trembled with humiliation and unspoken rage. Observing the scene, his maid remarked that she didn't like this outcome, particularly that he'd let the match end with his opponent in tears. Visibly flustered, Hiro backpedaled, suggesting he might just take one item instead. She then revealed her original intention, to smash him to pieces with her bloodied club. She clarified that she had merely been clearing out mobs that had wandered too close during their duel, all while Lapis continued to weep nearby. Terrified by her threat of execution, he scrambled to make amends. He quickly offered Lapis a different catalyst, promising to return the extra one he'd taken. Wiping away her tears, she meekly agreed. But her meekness vanished in an instant. She seized his arm, a fiery determination in her eyes, and thanked him for the guidance. She demanded another match, vowing to fight at full power from the very beginning. Her sudden challenge left both Hiro and his maid speechless. As he processed her demand, Hiro reflected on his victory. He admitted that luck was a factor, but his ability to activate the Kuki Masamune and, more importantly, avoid triggering Lapis's negative relationship path was due to his extensive knowledge from playing Yesio in his previous life. He felt confident this foreknowledge would allow him to evade all the deadly pitfalls ahead. His true objective became clear in his mind, to use his knowledge to ensure that he, Sanjihiro, would not become an obstacle between the story's heroines. He would guide events toward a future where they could pursue their relationship without interference. Lapis, however, completely misinterpreted his determined silence. "Sorry, I give up. I lose," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm, before shouting that he was clearly trying to throw the match. She slammed him to the ground, pinning him beneath her weapon with furious intensity. "Then go all out," she demanded. Pinned and overwhelmed, Hiro could only think that he was going to die, the will to fight already draining from him. From the sidelines, his maid watched the spectacle, silently wishing for a break from the chaos. In the derelict depths of an abandoned train station, goblin-like creatures charge forward along the tracks. Facing them, a young man with spiky, light-colored hair calmly draws a katana, his silhouette stark against the gloom. He moves in a flash, his blade a silver arc that cuts through the monsters effortlessly. The battle is over in an instant. With a triumphant grin, he watches his experienced points materialize, reflecting on how this all began the day after his whirlwind reincarnation. Following the dungeon challenge, a small bag of loot appears. He feels confident that with his sword, the Kuki Masamune, things will be smooth sailing. A fleeting, guilty thought of a distressed lapis crosses his mind, acknowledging that he owes her for this. He proceeds through the ruined Tokyo station, the lowest level of this dungeon. He notes to himself that he has gathered a good amount of conductors, which should prove useful. Pausing his advance, he holds up a glowing card, deciding it's time to use some real enhancement magic. From behind, his maid attendant watches him, thinking that while he acts confident, there's still something uncertain about it. The maid glances around the desolate hall, wondering why she is tagging along and questioning if this is truly the lowest level. He notices her expression and asks if she's still bothered by something, mentioning he already apologized to her colleague. With a huff, she dismisses his concern. As they continue, her eyes suddenly fix on a figure lurking in a nearby doorway. She stops abruptly, pointing toward the shadowy corridor and alerting him that someone is there. They round the corner to find Lapis, clad in a hoodie, attempting to hide behind a pillar. He calls out her name, unimpressed, asking if she seriously considers that hiding. Startled, she jolts. She steps out awkwardly, declaring it a corner defense tactic. He dryly remarks that she's far too flustered for it to be effective. The maid recognizes her, thinking to herself, the zero-score guy. Lapis strikes a pose, proclaiming that fate has brought them together for their 100th encounter and that they must settle things now. Unmoved, he flatly refuses. He mutters that he understands why she keeps pursuing him, but she complains that he isn't listening. She assumes he wants to settle the score from yesterday's loss, but then poses a more pressing question. How is he even able to enter the dungeon? He smirks, explaining that with his zero score, the overseeing agency would never grant him a permit. However, thanks to his family connections, the Sanju family, he was able to bypass the entire process. Changing the subject, he points out her attire, reminding her that she called it formal wear. He expresses concern that an elf princess dressed in such a way meeting with a man would be a problem if anyone saw them. She dismisses his worries entirely. To her, the shame of constantly losing to a zero-score guy is far more significant than being seen with him. She reasons that since she considers him on the same level as a bug, no one would make a fuss. She clarifies that she doesn't hold that kind of prejudice, at least not towards him right now. In her view, looking down on men is simply common sense. Hearing this, he touches his ear and replies with mock sincerity that he is deeply honored, as having a pleasant conversation with her is an exceptionally rare occurrence. Ignoring his sarcasm, she tells him not to try and save face or act humble as she begins equipping armored gauntlets and greaves over her casual clothes. With a determined grin, she declares that she isn't giving up on their match. She badgers him, calling him a battle maniac and urging him to get ready. Finally relenting, he agrees to fight just enough to calm her down. As they stand ready, she reflects on her insistence. It isn't that she enjoys picking on the weak, but something about the way he fought the day before felt wrong. Her thoughts are shattered as a massive, armored hand clamps down on her shoulder. A towering knight in full plate armor, wielding a greatsword, has appeared from the shadows, and the warrior can only stare in shock. He reacts instantly to another sneak attack, dismissing it as the same dirty tricks as always. He shouts for everyone to get down, leaping forward to tackle a young archer to the ground just as an unseen assailant strikes. The warrior shields the girl with his body as a massive armored fist smashes into the ground where they just stood, sending sparks flying. He grits his teeth, wondering who this new troublesome opponent could be. The source of the attack is a hulking suit of animated armor, wreathed in a dark aura. It is a rare encounter, a sudden event in a dungeon where a high-level mob appears in an area far above its expected difficulty. He recognizes the creature as a floating phantom armor, an avenging spirit born from the grudges of night-type monsters. A sudden realization dawns on him. He must have accidentally triggered the conditions for its appearance by hunting so many of them the day before. He scoops the archer into his arms. She protests, insisting she can stand on her own, but he apologizes and holds firm. He tells her that her legs have clearly given out from fear, and since she would only get noisy if he pointed out, he'll just stay quiet and carry her. Still holding her, he turns his gaze back to the looming phantom armor. He notes that the enemy certainly isn't going to wait for her to recover. Elsewhere, the maid with the eye patch receives an order to head to the entrance. She retorts that she was already planning to, noting that the floating phantom armor is highly durable and that Lapis is now out of commission. The warrior decides on a course of action, declaring that the best of the 36 stratagems is to run. He raises his baton-like weapon, invoking the commands Conductor and Connect as magical energy begins to swirl around. He prepares his spell, rapidly altering his own body. He enhances his optic nerves, reinforces his musculature and skeleton, and generates a surface layer of mana. With his preparations complete, he readies himself for spell activation. With his preparations complete, he unleashes his power, shouting the name of the spell. Enhancement Projection. The archer girl in his arms stares in disbelief, shocked that he is capable of using such an advanced form of magic. He reveals the nature of his spell, a formula known as YesCO magic, which can be deployed by combining conductors. This feat is only possible thanks to the mana surface layer he recently acquired. With the spell cast not as an attack, but as a diversion, he scoops up the young archer and declares their immediate priority is to escape. He reasons that no matter how strong the creature is, the system prevents it from pursuing them across different dungeon floors. The assassin maid follows as they dash towards the exit. Their pursuer, however, reacts with swift purpose. The floating phantom armor raises its shield, the metal groaning under the strain of its sudden movement. The armored figure hurls its shield like a discus. The warrior glances back, his eyes widening as the spinning projectile hurtles past him. The shield finds its target not in them, but in their only way out. The assassin maid watches as it slams into the exit gate, shattering the structure into a cloud of dust and debris. He skids to a halt, still carrying the girl, his face tight with frustration. Their escape route is completely blocked by rubble, the enemy's shield embedded within the wreckage. This, he realizes, is a serious problem. Turning back to the smoldering night, his frustration gives way to a defiant smirk. He calls out to the armor, tauntingly asking if it missed him. Suddenly, Lapis is on her feet, looking steady enough to stand. The warrior glances at her in surprise. She observes that his magic is likely to run out first and questions if they can truly shake their opponent. Her gaze drifts to a strange, floating cube nearby. She acknowledges that while they can't ignore the spirit armors, they also haven't found any dimensional gates leading out. With resolve, she declares to the warrior that it is time to continue their match. The warrior's expression brightens with an idea. He challenges Lapis. If she defeats the hunk of metal, he'll concede the match. She reacts with disbelief, shouting that she can't possibly beat it. He mocks her, questioning her earlier bravado about a zero-score player taking on a powerful foe. Lapis admits with frustration that she still can't move well enough to run. Internally, the warrior smirks, thinking that she's a battle brain who will surely take the bait if he frames it as a fight. He crouches, looking up at Lapis with fierce determination. He tells her that he will become her legs, enabling her to smash the smug face of their armored adversary. She questions this, asking if teaming up would invalidate the terms of their match. He dismisses the notion, admitting that as a zero-score player, he doesn't know the official rules. What he does know, he states with conviction, is that he cannot allow her to die here. His words seem to affect her, and she gives a small, almost playful wink before her expression hardens. Turning to face the phantom armor, the warrior roars his intent to beat the creature down and turn it into scrap metal. He then quietly apologizes, realizing that in his ideal Yuri garden, not a single girl should be missing. As the armor lunges, he shouts a tactical command for her to attack from a left. Lapis complies instantly, but the armor's powerful counterattack sends her reeling. He immediately spots an opening in its defense and calls it out to her. He explains that attacking the exterior is pointless. Its tough core is the true body. He asks if she can pierce it through the gaps in the plating. With a defiant cry, she lunges forward, demanding to know who he thinks he's talking to. Her weapon strikes the armor's chest, a flash of energy erupting at the point of impact. The blow lands, and for a moment, it seems to have worked. He observes, however, that her firepower is likely insufficient. The armor remains standing, seemingly unharmed. Seeing the armor ready its blade, he decides he has no other choice. He declares he will make the target easier for her to hit, then suddenly grabs her from behind, much to her shock. He activates what he calls his one and only final physical enhancement. With a surge of power, he leaps onto the armor's leg, driving his own weapon deep into the joint with a guttural roar. The enhancement proves successful. The armor's leg shatters, creating the opening they need. As he falls back, he shouts in triumph. Lapis seizes the opportunity, diving through the gap with her blade aimed directly at the exposed, glowing core. Her strike finds its mark. With a metallic scream, the phantom armor shatters under the force of the blow, its form exploding into fragments. On the ground, Hiro Sanjo stares in awe, while the spiky-haired young man watches with a detached calm, considering it an expected outcome. Triumphant, she plummets through the air, a joyous laugh echoing in the cavernous space. Upon landing, she immediately throws her arms around Hiro, celebrating their amazing victory. Her eyes sparkle with excitement as she questions how he could possibly be a score 0 after such a display. His strength gives out. He collapses to the ground, gasping that he is completely worn out and has run out of mana. Lapis looks down at him, her celebration turning to worried concern. As she fusses over Hiro, the spiky-haired man and his maid-like companion approach. He declares it Lapis's complete victory, stating plainly that no one but her could have finished off that pile of scrap. The assassin interrupts, addressing her companion. She thanks him dryly, remarking that she has been spared the trouble of reporting Hiro-sama's death. Lapis confronts the man, demanding to know where his certainty came from. She questions why he was so sure she could defeat a rare monster, pushing herself to the brink like that. She calls it a foolish question, yet her gaze remains fixed on him, awaiting an answer. He replies with unwavering confidence that he would of course believe in Esko's heroine, especially one with a score of 30,000. Turning to his companion, he instructs her to take down the boss on the lowest floor. As they prepare to depart, Lapis asks for his name. With a charming wink, he announces his name is Yamada Teru. The assassin beside him remains completely stone-faced, unimpressed by his flair. Lapis softly repeats the name, a small, thoughtful smile forming on her face. She muses to herself that people like him exist in this world, too. She stood beside the maid as the rival, Yamada Teru, warned them to stay away from Hiro. He described Hiro as a scumbag who messes around with girls and, on top of that, has a score of 0. He seemed particularly suspicious of how quickly Lapis and Hiro had hit off, having only met the day before. His outward concern, however, was a facade for a sudden, intense realization. His Yuri sense was screaming at him. Perhaps Lapis and the maid had tagged along together. The thought sent him into a delighted frenzy. He imagined they were using him as an excuse to meet up, picturing them in a romantic embrace. He celebrated this brand new pairing at first sight. Lapis, flustered, insisted it was just an occasional outfit, while the maid remained impassive. Regardless of his fantasies, their mission was a success. Lapis had dispatched the boss of the lowest floor with a single shot, allowing them all to return safely to the outside world. A few days passed, and life fell into a familiar routine. Two young women walked together along an overpass. Suddenly, the girl with short hair tripped, crying out as she fell forward. Her companion turned just in time to see her stumble. She landed on top of her friend, immediately apologizing and trying to get up. Her friend, however, told her it was fine and suggested they stay like that for a little longer. This was no accident. Nearby, the rival celebrated a successful public street Yuri ambush. He mused that his habit of early morning runs, kept since before his reincarnation, was essential, as stamina is crucial for conquering Yuri games. His thoughts shifted to the mechanics of Esco. He considered how a mage's strength is entirely dependent on their personal stats. A chart of heroes' stats appeared in his mind, showing exceptionally low values across the board, especially in magic power. He knew that without sufficient magic power, even a good catalyst results in weak spells and quick exhaustion. He continued his run, reflecting on his own training. While scores could boost abilities, the only way to build magic power was through tedious, steady training. His method had been to run marathons while using body enhancement magic. He'd given up on that, deciding it was better to just run normally after his magic was depleted. As he ran, he noticed with some unease that he had been seeing more mages around lately. He feels a sense of unease, noticing a pair of elf-eared women observing him from a nearby bench. Something about this situation feels wrong. The young man is suddenly stopped by a maid wearing a comical fake nose and glasses. He immediately calls her out on the disguise, but she feigns ignorance, claiming he has the wrong person. She removes the disguise, revealing her eye patch. With a stern look, she introduces herself as Maid Delta of the Sanjo family, calling him foolish for mistaking her. He retorts that her act is completely busted. He decides to let the matter with the maid slide for now. Feeling the elves' eyes on him, he assumes they're gossiping about him being a rare beast. Feeling hot from his run, he heads inside for a drink. Upon entering the grand foyer, he is immediately confronted by Lapis. Standing at the top of the stairs with her hands on her hips, she yells that he's late and should have sent a message if he was going to run for 2 hours. He stands there, exhausted and sweating, as she continues her complaint. Lapis states that if it weren't for a message from the guards, she would have been stuck waiting outside. She then pointedly asks why he is even there. She then teases him, calling him the Sanjo family's Yamada-kun and remarking on his bold-faced lie. Lapis explains that it's easy to find personal information, especially since there aren't many nobles with a score of 0 who enter dungeons. Her words reveal that Maid Delta let her in, and Lapis notes the maid is still holding a grudge. The rival is stunned, realizing the guards who sent the message must have been the elves he saw earlier, meaning they were stalking his running course. Elsewhere, another young man correctly identifies Lapis's companions as Manga archers, her personal guard unit. He recognizes them as the elite 12 elven beauties from the game, concluding that if they are gathered, Lapis must have an enemy. He smirks, wondering if it's some kind of family drama. Back inside, Lapis asks where his room is. He deflects, questioning her reasons and noting that the elves came with her. She dismisses his concern as personal reasons, then states her room is at the end of the second-floor corner, adding that the room next door would be fine for him. She stood at his doorway and flatly announced that she was living there starting today. Her declaration left him stammering, trying to explain that whatever her reasons, she should just go home. He insisted that even Yuri girls should know not to barge into a man's room, a lesson for moral education. The words failed to register, his mind struggling to process her statement. He puffed his cheeks in exasperation, but she continued, unperturbed. Turning her back to him, she explained that their last encounter felt more like simple cooperation. She reasoned that living together would make their contest easier and more convenient until matters were settled, presenting it as a perfectly logical arrangement. With a playful wink, she pointed at him, a confident smile on her face. She called him Sanjo Hirokuen and declared that he shouldn't think he could escape from her. Her words, and the use of that name, sent him into a spiral. He clutched his head, screaming in sheer frustration, telling her not to mess with him. Meanwhile, under the night sky of the sprawling city, another figure stood watch. A woman with long, dark hair rested a hand on the hilt of her katana. She mused on the recent events concerning Lapis, finding it remarkable that the one who had admitted defeat and now sought a rematch, the one who had seriously captured the interest of someone as mighty as herself, was a human man, of all things. A confident smirk played on her lips as she spoke the name aloud, Sanjo Hiro. Her presence radiated an aura of immense power, a clear sign of a formidable new player entering the field. An imposing, multi-story mansion stands under a bright sky, its grand architecture suggesting significant wealth and history. At its entrance, a surprising scene unfolds. Lapis, at the head of a large group of elves, announces their arrival. She explains that all 12 of them from Manga archery, along with their considerable luggage, will be in his care. With a wobble, She comments that houses for people are rather small. She then turns her attention to Sanjo Hiro, ordering him to help carry their things. He points to himself, questioning his involvement. He clarifies that while he is living there alone for now, the house will eventually belong to the heir, Rei. His words hang in the air as the sheer scale of the property becomes apparent. From an overhead view, the sprawling estate with its main house, gardens, and detached buildings is revealed. He internally laments that it's far too huge, and he had no idea what to do with it all. He had been contemplating this very problem, wishing he could share it with someone, but he certainly never imagined sharing it with a large group of boisterous elf girls. Just then, more of them arrive in a rugged vehicle, shouting for everyone to clear the way for more luggage. Inside, the group wastes no time in making themselves at home. As Hiro hauls boxes up the stairs, some of the elves marvel at the sheer number of famous paintings lining the walls. One elf spots a corner room on the first floor and immediately claims it, much to the playful dismay of her companion. Their excitement over the decor continues, much to Hiro's chagrin as he struggles with his load. The elves admire the art, with one noting a piece in a completely different style and another complimenting his good taste, oblivious to his suffering. He pauses for a moment, the chaos fading into the background. His expression turns serious as a thought crystallizes in his mind. Speaking of the Mikage archery, his thoughts turn to the group's leadership. Exhausted, he sits on the floor and wonders where they are. Just then, the hooded Mikage archer appears, informing another elf that there is one more person guarding Lapis and that their luggage goes in a specific room. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out, "Iro-san." Drawn by the call, he opens a nearby door, only to be struck speechless. Two young elves, wrapped only in towels, have just finished bathing. One cheerfully thanks him while holding up a bottle, as the other chides her for walking around like that. Hiro can only stare in stunned silence. Inside the mansion's bathing area, two of the newly arrived elves, still wrapped in towels, discuss their new housemate. One remarks that she's heard Hiro is a notorious womanizer, yet he just walked in on them without a second thought. The other elf considers that since their hooded companion let him pass, perhaps he isn't as sleazy as the rumors claim. Nearby, the cloaked elf stands guard silently, while Hiro himself remains by the doorway, seemingly unaware of their conversation. As he stands before the bathhouse door, a cheerful voice calls out his name, "Hiro." The voice belongs to Lapis, who waves at him with a bright smile. She asks if he's finished helping out, then requests a moment of his time. She explains that since they all want to get along, she needs him to explain the house rules. Hiro looks like he's about to interject. Before he can speak, she continues, detailing her predicament. Since they are trying to live in a tatami room, she finds she can't sleep without a bed. She then points out that his room, the corner one on the second floor, conveniently has both a bed and tatami mats. With a triumphant snap of her fingers, Lapis presents her simple solution. If they swap rooms, the problem is solved. Realizing the implications, Hiro immediately dashes away in a panic. As he flees, Lapis calls out a final offer, promising that if he agrees to trade, she'll have the Mikage archery girls help him out. Unseen by her, Hiro's hand glows as he activates multiple body enhancements, then launches himself away with explosive force. At that exact moment, somewhere else entirely, the other Sanjo Hiro is violently flung into the sky. He screams in terror and disbelief, wondering what in the world is happening and lamenting that this feels exactly like the opening sequence of an erotic game. He lands hard in a nearby park. Slumped on a bench, he sighs, muttering to himself about where the budding romance between the girls went and why events always seem to revolve around the guy. His thoughts drift to his own situation. If he's going to be living with Lapis and the other Mikage archery girls, things are bound to get complicated, especially with the princess making such strange proposals. He decides to set the issue aside for later, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He concludes with a firm, internal resolve. There is someone else who should be brought into this situation as well. He anxiously checked his watch, realizing the situation was bad. While helping with the move, he kept an eye out for his expected guests, but hadn't seen them. He figured they would arrive around dinner time and resolved to prepare the finest, most luxurious hospitality for their arrival. As he fretted, a determined figure approached. She knew that for a first meeting with that one, it was an absolute requirement to go through the princess first, and she intended to show they were on friendly terms. Meanwhile, Princess Lapis, having ended up in a park, was searching for Hiro after his sudden disappearance. She reasoned that by following the running course, she could get back to the villa before dinner, and thought there was a chance Hiro might come that way as well. Before Lapis could find anyone, the other Hiro was confronted by the mysterious swordswoman. Her face obscured by shadow, she identified him as the warrior who defeated Lapis, stating that encountering him without the princess around was a problem. He stared in shock, completely bewildered by her words and her concern over someone having a low score. His confusion quickly turned to indignation. He demanded to know why she was there, arguing that if the stubborn Lapis had acknowledged someone, then it should be a powerful person like her who measures their worth. She paid his outburst no mind, her gaze sharp and unwavering. With quiet finality, she made her choice clear. Sanjo Hiro, I choose you. With a confident smile, she revealed her identity, Estemel Crew B, Curlicia. She was not only Lapis's other bodyguard, but also her master, the strongest warrior of the Elven Nation's holy capital. And she was interested in him. This knowledge sent a shockwave through the other hero. He remembered Estemel from the game ESCO, as a helper character on a Lapis route. But he also recalled a critical, terrifying detail. In the game, Astemel sees his character as a sworn enemy. The realization struck him like a physical blow. His memory proved prophetic. In a flash of insight, he saw himself lying defeated on the floor as Astemel stood over him, katana in hand. As onlookers questioned her mercy, she coldly dismissed him as a pest who had crept up to the princess with bad intentions. Her expression is cold, her judgment absolute. Mercy, she declares, is unnecessary. This is Astemel, known to players as the Judicator, and for Hiro, his absolute worst nightmare. As Lapis cheerfully asks if they should begin, Sanjo Hiro quickly interjects, trying to explain that his victory over Lapis was a fluke, admitting he only won because he borrowed her catalyst. His plea falls on deaf ears. Astemel's gaze hardens as she simply tells him to get ready. A wave of pure, undiluted killing intent washes over Sanjo Hiro, a pressure unlike anything he has ever faced. He braces himself, realizing the fight is unavoidable. He has no time to hesitate, screaming as he summons his power, activating an enhanced projection. But the swordswoman moves with blinding speed, her strike cleaving through the park bench where he stood just a moment before. He lands hard, the splintered wood a testament to his narrow escape. Had he not reacted, he would have been sliced clean in half. His survival, however, draws a curious reaction. Lapis looks on in surprise, remarking that he dodged the attack. She holds up the weapon Astemel used, a simple tree branch. The realization stuns Sanjo Hiro. Seeing that even a simple branch was dodged, Lapis decides a more serious approach is needed. She supposes she may as well draw her own blade, posing a question to the air. Who's the strongest in the world of ESCO? Her question hangs in the air, though the answer is well-established lore. Any player would say it is Astemel. While elves typically excel in magic and agility, Astemel is an anomaly. Her stats are all maxed out, giving her the highest overall growth of any character and making her utterly flawless in battle. She is, in essence, an overwhelmingly powerful, or broken, character. With her true blade now drawn, she readies herself for the next assault. She gives him no time to recover, lunging forward once more. Sanjo Hiro realizes with dawning horror that unlike with Lapis, tricks will not work on this opponent. He is thrown completely off balance, struggling to react to the sheer, unstoppable force of her direct attack. He desperately parries the powerful thrust, the sharp clang of steel echoing his disbelief. The sheer force behind Astemel's attack is something he cannot comprehend. His block does nothing to deter her. Her grip on the hilt simply tightens, the leather creaking under the immense pressure as she prepares her next move. Before he can react, she pivots and slams the pommel of her sword into him. From a distance, Lapis observes the exchange, noting with some surprise that his performance up to this point has been perfect. The blow sends him stumbling backward, coughing from the impact. Astemel calmly sheathes her blade, declaring that the warm-up is now over. She then settles into a new, far more dangerous stance. Lapis's eyes widen as she recognizes it instantly. Aiajutsu. With a confident smirk, Astemel challenges him, asking how he intends to handle this. His response is to turn and flee, screaming that he's going to die. He understands that an Aiajutsu stance means she is in full combat mode, and that maniacs like her will never accept a surrender. Since he can't win and can't afford to lose, his only option is to run. As he vanishes, Lapis kneels, her expression growing serious. She concludes that she, too, has no choice but to find a way to escape this situation without suffering a loss. Suddenly, Astemel appears in a flash of movement directly above the fleeing Sanjo Hiro. He looks up in horror, realizing she used a catalyst for Flash Step, a teleportation ability. He thinks it's cheating for a melee character to have such a skill. With no way to escape, his only hope is that she is still holding back her true power. His desperation sharpens his focus. He notices her weapon is not a magic catalyst, but an ordinary katana. Though he panicked when she used Flash Step, he now sees an opening. If she's fighting without her catalyst, her magical defenses must be incomplete. He begins to form an orb of light in his hand. Realizing her magic can't completely block his, he thrusts his hand forward, unleashing the brilliant light orb. The sudden, blinding flash catches Astemel completely off guard, her expression twisting in surprise and discomfort as she recoils from the intense glare. She dismisses the flash of light with a grunt, whipping her sheathed katana at Sanjo Hiro with incredible speed. He barely manages to evade the strike, which shatters the ground where he stood. He lands a short distance away, a triumphant grin on his face. He believes his blinding spell was a success, marveling at his own ability to cast such a spell in the heat of the moment and reasoning that if his opponent cannot see, she is powerless. His confidence is immediately shattered as Astemel stands amidst the debris, smiling cheerfully. She admits that the sudden flash did startle her and made her tense up a bit, but shows no other signs of being affected. Hiro stares in disbelief, a fresh cut now visible on his cheek. Astemel calmly praises his effort as magnificent, but points out that even with his Aiajutsu, the small cut was all he managed to achieve. Utterly bewildered, he questions what she means. Her expression brightens with an almost childlike glee. She declares that since he has responded with everything he had, It is only fair that she respond in kind, with her own full strength. The terrifying implication dawns on Hiro, his face twisting in horror. She closes her eyes and raises a hand, magical energy beginning to coalesce around her. She begins an incantation, a poetic verse about singing of nostalgic days. As she continues her chant, she rises into the air, enveloped in a powerful aura. The incantation speaks of sealing the heavens, swearing oaths upon the land, and binding pacts with creed in hand. It is a spell of immense significance, one tied to a unique catalyst. The incantation reaches its crescendo as a blinding light emanates from her. She calls for all to breathe in the radiant, ever-shining light of the temple and sing together. Her spell manifests as a colossal, spectral bow made of pure energy, an arrow of light nocked and ready. Hiro recognizes it as her magical catalyst device. He invokes an ancient ancestor, an archer from a distant time, to be guided by the power. Realizing he has no other options, Hiro steels himself, knowing he must bet everything on the arrival of his allies. The technique is revealed in its full glory, the sacred bow, ready to unleash the crimson, celestial blaze. Below, a bloodied Sanjo Hiro looks up, a grim smile on his face as he accepts the direness of his situation. He braced for the impact, but it never came. The overwhelming power vanished, and Estemmel was suddenly before him, her hand pressed against his cheek. With wide, furious eyes, she demanded to know why he would make her draw her treasured bow in a place like this, calling him out of his mind. The reason for her sudden halt became clear as another group arrived on the scene of destruction. Hiro Sanjo called out to Lapis, questioning her presence. She explained with a worried expression that he had vanished so suddenly, she had come searching for him. Her gaze then shifted to the confrontation nearby. Lapis sternly admonished Estemmel, revealing she had come to check the running course only to find this chaos. She demanded an explanation for why Estemmel was using the treasured bow. Estemmel, flustered, could only laugh nervously and claim she got a bit carried away. As Estemmel stammered, Sanjo Hiro's expression twisted into one of manic triumph. He declared loudly that this intervention was his trump card all along, leaving Lapis completely bewildered. He let the statement hang in the air as Estemmel turned to Lapis to explain. She admitted that she had anticipated Lapis would chase after Hiro Sanjo when he disappeared. Her entire fight, she confessed, was a desperate struggle to survive and buy enough time for their arrival. He confirmed her account with a confident smirk, stating that he had won the bet and survived. Now, he pointed out to Lapis, she had no choice but to cease hostilities in the presence of her princess, Estemmel. While Lapis and Hiro Sanjo looked on in surprise, Estemmel suddenly burst into hearty laughter. She conceded her defeat completely, admitting that he had gotten her good, even forcing her to use her treasured bow. Her laughter subsided, replaced by a look of genuine admiration. She addressed him as Hiro, acknowledging that he had far exceeded her expectations. She praised his extraordinary talent, suggesting it might one day surpass her own, and extended her hand. With a sly grin, he remarked that he supposed he couldn't beat a cheat, and then swiftly yanked a piece of cloth from her outstretched palm. Using his motion as leverage, she pulled him off balance and directly into her arms. Looking down at the surprised young man, she posed a question. Won't you become my disciple? The sudden intimacy and unexpected offer left Lapis aghast, heralding a new wave of chaos. At 4 a.m, a young woman with pointed ears stretches, remarking on the pleasant chill in the air to Sanjo Hiro. He glances at his watch, taken aback, and cautiously asks who she is. She beams, introducing herself as Estemmel, the cute mentor here to train him. She proudly displays the word master printed on her tracksuit, much to Hiro's dismay at the lame design. A former fierce enemy has become an annoying, cute mentor. This cheerful demeanor is a stark contrast to the Estemmel he knows, the sword demon. He recalls her intense, battle-ready form, challenging an opponent to break her sword. He wonders where all that intensity is gone, a thought he'd also share with Lapis. Estemmel, however, dismisses the need for stiff, honorific language typical of a master-disciple relationship. Winking, she points at him and declares that she wants them to speak in a more casual way. He immediately points out the contradiction, noting that she is also using polite speech. He addresses her simply as master. She clarifies her request with a serene smile, asking him to please call her master. Hiro, however, is looking for the exact opposite. He wants to talk down to her and rub her the wrong way. The thought of being disrespectful to Estemmel immediately conjures a terrifying image in his mind. He pictures her fearsome, sword demon persona slicing him in two, leaving him without even a body. His hesitation causes Estemmel to throw a tantrum, flailing on the ground and stammering out the word master. She then jumps up, face red with anger, and declares she won't respond until he calls her that. Hiro can only stare, thinking how ridiculous the situation is. She turns away, pouting with her arms crossed. Hiro is stunned. The same Estemmel who was so wary and saw him as a threat is now acting like a child. He internally scoffs, noting she's 420 years old, about 21 in human years, and questions if she actually thinks she's being cute. Despite his internal monologue, a different feeling arises. His annoyance gives way to a mysterious anger as he grits his teeth, forced to admit to himself that, damn it, she really is cute. He then wonders if she could act like that toward an actual girl. He tries to clarify their relationship, asking if she's just a bodyguard hired to clean up messes, a role that wouldn't require him to call her master. The question seems to fluster her. He addresses her as master again, but she whirls back, emphatically correcting him. With a stomp and a pose, she declares that it's her who is the master, a display he finds utterly annoying. She cuts off his complaints, a small smile playing on her lips as she declares the chatting is over. Addressing him as her beloved student, she asks if they should begin. He's still holding a book, looks on in confusion, wondering what they are supposed to start. She answers his unspoken question with a sharp movement, drawing a katana. Training, of course, she states, adding that they will begin with a warm-up. The sight of the real blade shocks him, and he cries out in alarm, questioning why she needs to draw a nameless grave. Standing at a distance on the paved ground, he asks if she learned the sword's name from Lapis. She confirms it, and he continues, noting that it's unusual to name a normal weapon. He then asks if she is aware that Nameless Grave is not a magic catalyst. She beams, explaining that its lack of magic makes it perfectly safe. With a confident flourish, she insists that a blade is essential for warm-up exercises. He stares back, completely bewildered by her logic. He pleads with her to stop imposing her strange culture on him and to not leave her disciple behind in her reasoning. He argues that as a complete novice with a sword, using a real blade from the very start is nothing short of suicidal. His protest seems to deflate her enthusiasm. In response, he presents a solution. A wooden practice sword from the Holy Capital. He holds it up for her to see, suggesting they use this for the time being. She takes the wooden blade from him, her expression one of clear reluctance. She agrees to use it, but only for this one time, muttering that practical combat training would be more suitable for him. He retorts sharply, accusing her of simply wanting to swing a real sword. The debate settles. Under the glow of the streetlights, the wide, empty path by the river serves as their training ground. In an instant, the stillness is broken. Estemmel lunges forward, a blur of motion, her eyes fixed on her target. She unleashed a furious barrage of strikes, her wooden sword moving with blinding speed. Hiro desperately parried, the force of each blow jarring him to the bone. He staggered back, the wood of his own sword groaning under the strain. A chilling realization struck him. If she were using a real blade, he would already be dead. From the sidelines, Lapis recalled Estemmel's reputation from a game. She explained that Estemmel's stats were so overpowered that, in a short time, she could help a party defeat high-level enemies. Lapis knew this was only the beginning, shouting that the fight was far from over. The memory of Lapis's words echoed in Hiro's mind. He pictured her and another elf in the game, rapidly gaining levels after a victory, a strategy that allowed for aggressive growth right from the start. He understood, then, that against a mentor of this caliber, no cheap tricks would work. His moment of reflection was cut short as Estemmel whipped her sword through the air, preparing her next assault with a sharp, determined gaze. She brought the blade down, and this time, Hiro met it more cleanly. A flicker of confidence ignited within him as he felt he was beginning to understand the flow of the sword, thinking he was finally getting the hang of it. But his confidence was premature. In the instant he focused on the blade, Estemmel drove her fist directly into his face, sending him sprawling to the ground. He lay on the dirt, stunned, protesting that the exchange should have ended with the block. Estemmel calmly stood over him, pointing out his mistake. He had let his guard down simply because it was a wooden sword, and a successful block does not mean the fight is over. She rested the wooden blade on her shoulder, a confident smile playing on her lips. She declared her core philosophy: to win, even if it means having her own flesh cut and bones broken. This, she explained, was the Estemmel style. Lying on the ground, Hiro could only think to himself that this so-called strongest warrior was not normal at all. Unmoved by his exhaustion, Estemmel simply ordered him to straighten his stance. He pushed through the grueling session for hours, sweat stinging his eyes. Lapis watched him, a playful smile on her face as she mused that if both his flesh and bone were cut, he would surely die. With a strained expression, he retorted that her comment was nothing more than harassment. His body finally gave out, and he collapsed to the ground with a thud. Gasping for air, he yelled out, questioning how she wasn't even winded. He declared his own base stamina was nearly maxed out, and that her endurance was something he'd have to work towards, before angrily calling her a gorilla. Seeing him utterly spent, Lapis knelt beside him, offering a bottle of water. She praised his willpower for making it so far without collapsing and announced it was time for a break to move on to some theory. She then added with a cheerful grin that their training would resume the moment the break was over. As he drank, Hiro immediately apologized for calling her a gorilla, while simultaneously shouting for her to go drum on her chest. Later, sitting on a park bench under the evening sky, Lapis asked Hiro if he had decided which attribute he was going to train. He looked down at the drink in his hands, admitting that he was still not sure. She began to explain the system. In this world beyond base stats, there are 6 elemental attributes for catalysts: fire, water, wind, earth, light, and dark. By utilizing the magic of a specific attribute, one could raise their corresponding stats. He considered his options, thinking that he was leaning toward water as his main attribute. It seemed to work well with other elements for a support role, creating effects like superheated steam with fire, a laser cannon with light, or a landslide with earth. He realized that choosing a sub-role would likely mean giving up his kooky Masamune sword due to its limited formula slots. Lapis suggested that light would be a good choice, pairing well with swords and enabling light speed movement with flash step. Hiro's reaction was immediate and visceral. He hated light. Surprised, Lapis asked him why. His mind flashed to an image of his rival, Sanjo Hiro, smirking confidently with a katana. The reason was clear. The light attribute overlapped with that smug bastard. He couldn't stand the thought of someone interfering with Yuri being a light user, seething that they should return to nothing. Lapis noticed his distress, gently patting his head and observing that he had a lot on his mind. Breaking from his dark thoughts, Hiro confessed that he had been thinking of trying weapons besides just swords. Intrigued, Lapis leaned in, asking him to elaborate. His clothes torn and his body trembling with exhaustion, Sanjo Hiro finally stumbles back to the gates of the estate. He had made it. He walks through the grounds, noting that it's 9 o'clock. He's been gone for nearly 5 hours and feels dead tired. Lapis had disappeared earlier, claiming she had an errand. The thought of walking all the way to the main bath feels like a chore, so he decides to use the showers at the training grounds, which are much closer. With a heavy push, he opens the door to the training hall, a vast and silent space stretching out before him. He passes by the training area, thinking that if he really wanted to train, he could just go to the dungeon. For now, he's just heading for the shower. Inside the shower room, he notes the dozen stalls lined up in a row. With just him here, it feels like a total waste. He reaches out and turns on the water. As he showers, the sound of a nearby door opening catches his attention. Someone else has come in. The sudden realization hits Lapis. Her eyes widen in shock, her face flushing a deep red as she stands under the spray of water. She lets out a piercing shriek, slipping on the wet tiles and crashing to the floor just as he pulls back the curtain to investigate the noise. He can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. He mockingly calls it a classic game scenario, finding it hilarious that of all the things that could happen, it had to be this cliché. His laughter is cut short as a cloaked figure strikes from the shadows, kicking him off balance. A gloved hand presses a blade to his throat, and a voice mocks the very trope he was just laughing about, freezing him in place. In the shower room, the attack on Hiro Sanjo is renewed by a different assailant, a masked hooded elf. Lapis, wrapped in a towel, shouts for the attacker, whom she calls Miur, to get away from Hiro, insisting she is fine. The elf, Miur, is taken aback by the name, but remains focused, identifying Hiro as an assassin who uses the hidden weapon technique known as Shadow Hand. She moves with blinding speed, disarming Hiro and slamming him onto the tiled floor. With her own blade now at his throat, she cries out Lapis's title, Princess. The commotion attracts a crowd. The door to the showers slides open, revealing a group of other elven women who stare in shock at the scene. Lapis in her towel, the shirtless Hiro pinned to the ground, and Miur poised to strike. Their expressions quickly turn to scorn. One of the elves dismisses the situation as boring, while another sneers that Hiro must be just some spoiled rich boy who was after the princess. Lapis quickly tries to de-escalate, insisting it was an accident and that she had barged in on Hiro. However, one of the guards, a girl with glasses, sternly replies that as the princess's guard, she cannot ignore that a man has seen her naked. Another group of elves, including a Stemmel, notices the state of Hiro's body. One points out the knife marks and bruises, questioning if he endured a Stemmel's training. Another elf with a high ponytail smirks, remarking that the brat might actually have some potential. Miur's focus intensifies, her aura flaring as she grits her teeth, frustrated that her instincts have grown dull. Below her, Hiro realizes how dangerous the situation has become, while Lapis looks on, terrified. Just then, a calm voice cuts through the tension. A woman in a tracksuit steps forward, observing that things seem to be getting tense and offering to clear the air. Miur immediately snaps to attention, addressing the newcomer as Master. From the floor, Hiro echoes the sentiment with a cry of his own. Their master explains that a clash between her elven students and Hiro was likely inevitable. She accepts partial responsibility, admitting that she wore him out in training to the point that he lost his focus. Pointing directly at Hiro, she declares a solution. They will battle. The sudden proclamation leaves Hiro stunned, feeling as though he's been thrust into a shonen manga plot. As the challenge hung in the air, the elven guards discussed the situation. One of them, the girl with pigtails, noted that their master had framed it as a friendly match, a simple get-together. But the tense expressions on her companions, Miur and the short-haired elf, suggested they felt otherwise. Their master, however, seemed to be in high spirits. Carrying bags of groceries, she cheerfully framed the contest as Alfheim Nation versus the Sanjo family. She then turned her attention to Hiro, remarking on how surprisingly relaxed he was for someone who had apparently organized a club just to get beaten up. Overwhelmed, Hiro could only think that this day must be the anniversary of his death. She then laid out the rules of the engagement, acknowledging that a straightforward fight would result in an obvious victory for the Mikage archers. To create a handicap, she announced a change in the teams. She called out to Lapis, assigning her to fight on the Sanjo family's side. With a confident wink and a thumbs up, Lapis accepted her new role. The news that Lapis would be his ally left Hiro stunned. But the master wasn't finished with her announcements. She declared that he would have one more helper in the coming battle. At that moment, Sanjo Rei arrived, dressed in a maid's uniform and looking utterly bewildered by the scene before her. She demanded an explanation from the master, her mind already racing with the unbelievable prospect of fighting alongside her tsundere younger sister and the boisterous elf. Hero Sanjo stands in shock, demanding to know what is happening. He shouts for Rei, his eyes wide as he also takes in the presence of a small maid and the elf, Lapis, who is holding a bag of snacks. He turns to Lapis, asking how she knows the woman. While taking a large bite of a taiyaki, Lapis casually explains that she picked her up while buying the snack. Hiro is aghast, insisting that Rei is not the kind of person one simply brings along on a whim. Lapis then clarifies that Rei is her little sister. The woman is Sanjo Rei, the next in line to head the Sanjo family. Information about her had apparently reached the main estate, but it had been dismissed as nothing more than a nasty, sarcastic rumor. Lapis turns to Hiro, remarking that she couldn't believe he had actually brought in elves until she saw it for herself. In that instant, the assassin Mir appears from the shadows and grabs Lapis, startling both her and Hiro. With a sly smile, Lapis begins to speak about the situation, but Rei cuts her off. Her expression is cold as she asks if Lapis intends to make them her mistresses. Lapis dismisses the thought, telling Rei to forget about them. She then turns the question back on Rei, asking if she isn't treating the princess like a mistress, reminding her that an elf is still an elf. Her tone becomes sharp and menacing. She calls Rei a foolish nobody from another world, wandering the Sanjo family's domain as if she owns it. Leaning in close, Lapis's eyes narrow as she commands Rei to know her place. Hiro quickly steps between them, telling Rei that's enough. He gently pushes Lapis's face away, stating that while he doesn't mind her Sanjo family act, she should stop saying things she doesn't truly mean. She offers Hiro an apology and thanks him for his intervention. Rei explains that it seems strange for the Sanjo family's problem child and womanizer to be secluded with someone, prompting her, the next head, to personally investigate. Her sole purpose, she claims, was to see for herself if the indecent rumors about him were true. Hiro playfully asks if he should have her review the daily breakfast menu as well. At this, Rei's demeanor shifts. Her gaze becomes ice-cold as she turns to the small maid, Snow. She asks if a mere attendant intends to interfere in a Sanjo family matter, causing the girl to flinch. Her attendant, Snow, remained perfectly still, her expression unreadable as she observed the unfolding family matter. While the maid remained silent, Sanjo Hiro offered a quick apology to Rei. He reflected on her tendency to say the opposite of what she meant. He knew she must have some business here, as there was no other reason for her to visit. Although he felt he should let her conclude her affairs and leave, he couldn't shake the unpleasant idea of a heroine meeting another man, even if that man was her brother. His internal conflict led him to a sudden decision. Voicing a bad feeling about leaving things as they were, he asked if she was truly just there to check on rumors. To cut through the tension, he boldly invited Rei to stay the night. She looked momentarily surprised, before her expression hardened with a dark realization. Her understanding was a complete misinterpretation. Clutching her chest, Rei accused him of being shameless, questioning if he wasn't satisfied with the elves and now intended to lay his hands on her, a distant relative. Utterly shocked, Hiro yelled back that such a thing was totally impossible. His denial did nothing to calm her. Her face twisted in fury, and she confessed that she had feared he might eventually pull something so despicable. The sheer level of animosity was staggering. From his own perspective, the player Hiro Sanjo could only wonder what the original pre-reincarnation hero had done to be even more hated than he was in the game's original story. While he grappled with the social fallout, his companions saw it differently. Lapis cheerfully remarked how tense and exciting things were becoming, suggesting that thanks to him, a war was about to break out between the Alpheum holy capital and the Sanjo family. Annoyed, Hiro snapped at his master, telling her she was overthinking it. She continued to downplay the situation, equating the entire conflict to a petty quarrel on the level of deciding between stew or curry for dinner. One of the other elves immediately suggested curry, prompting an exasperated Hiro to demand why they were starting such a light-hearted topic in the middle of a standoff. Her nonchalance was a deliberate strategy. Lapis explained that since the conversation was getting cluttered, they should just start the match, reminding the other elf that this was why the teams were split up. The elf, however, seemed genuinely concerned, asking Lapis if she really liked curry so much that its absence would mean war. Ignoring the question, her focus shifted entirely to the upcoming contest. As a rack of practice weapons came into view, Lapis announced that her little sister would be acting as their backup. She and the other elves gather in a training hall with Hiro Sanjo, preparing to proceed with the friendly match. She then lays out the terms. Acknowledging the difference in ability, the Sanjo side, consisting of Hiro and Lapis, is permitted to fight as a pair. However, if Team Mikage loses even a single round, it counts as a complete loss. The privilege for the victor is yet to be decided. Nearby, one of the elves complains to Mir that the prize for the royal capital side winning is merely the right to decide dinner, calling it a stingy return. Mir coldly retorts that as freeloaders, they should be glad for anything, and declares that the only option for dinner is curry. Lapis vents her frustrations to Hiro, arguing that if they accept the Sanjo family's terms, his peeping charge will be conveniently overlooked, and the Mikage archers will be forced to drop their hostility. She feels it's pointless to resist, as she's being forced into all sorts of unreasonable situations. Her composure cracks as she laments her fate as a princess, imagining being forced to perform absurd tasks. As she begins to spiral, Hiro shouts for her to get it together, reminding her that the match is about to begin. Just then, Sanjo Rei appears, stating she has no time for this fake friendship match. As she turns to leave, Estemel steps forward, accusing her of running away after making such a bold declaration. Rei's eyes narrow. She turns back, dropping her staff and summoning a knife into her hand. She promises to teach her opponent the true meaning of running away firsthand. The first match is officially announced, Shii versus Rei. Ignoring the challenge for a moment, she walks toward Hiro and Lapis. Addressing Hiro directly, Rei asks if he would mind lending her the princess. Before he can answer, the other Sanjo hero appears, waving casually. He tells Rei to make sure she escorts the princess properly, remarking that she is still a princess, even if only in name. The comment visibly irritates Lapis. Estemel gives Shii a reassuring pat on the head, apologizing in advance, as she is not good at holding back. In the center of the hall, Shii and Rei take their positions. The announcer calls for both sides to get ready. As Sanjo Rei and the elf Shii face each other, Rei internally admits she's not good at putting on a cool face, a sentiment Shii silently shares. With the maid Snow watching, Lapis officially begins the match. Without hesitation, Shii lunges forward, eager to test her opponent's strength. Her initial thrust is swift, but Rei sidesteps the attack with ease, sending Shii stumbling past. As Shii rights herself, Rei parries the wooden blade with her staff, coolly complimenting the elf on her nice thrust. Watching from the sidelines, Lapis remarks to Snow that a friendly match is only meaningful when fought in earnest. Taking this to heart, Shii recovers her stance and declares it's her turn, launching herself into another powerful kick aimed at Rei. She leaps high, bringing her wooden sword down in a powerful overhead arc while shouting that Rei's head is hers. In response, Rei simply twirls her staff, meeting the descending blade with a perfectly timed block. The impact sends Shii spinning away. Rei deftly leaps over the disoriented elf, but Shii is faster than she appears, lashing out mid-spin. She taunts Rei, asking if she really thought she had an opening. Landing smoothly, Rei finds Shii already on the offensive again. The elf declares it's her turn and launches a high, arcing kick aimed directly at Rei's head, shouting that this is the end. Rei's eyes widen as she winces, bracing for the blow. The kick only grazes her. Shii lands on one knee, laughing that she thought the attack would connect. The force of a near miss is still enough to send Rei stumbling back a step. Before Rei can recover, another elf with short hair appears beside Shii, taking the wooden sword from her hand. Lapis shouts a warning to the princess as the two elves yell switch. The new combatant immediately rushes Rei. As the two elves move in a coordinated assault, Lapis yells at them to get their bodies in line. Rei watches, her expression shifting to one of surprise as she realizes she's not fighting a single opponent. She reflects on the last attack, realizing she moved back just in time to avoid a serious injury to her collarbone, though a bruise is already formed on her shoulder. With a hardened gaze, she concludes that these Mikage archers are no pushovers. She turned to Lapis, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, and quietly wondered aloud if they could actually win. Lapis, ever nonchalant, simply replied that it was probably not possible. This assessment, however, was based on the assumption that both sides were at full strength. In reality, the Mikage archer, Rei, was handicapped by having her special bow sealed. Still, with Lapis on their side, they just might have a chance. The Mikage archer's skill was not to be underestimated, forged in relentless training. In a flashback, Shii and her partner sparred, their wooden blades clashing in a flurry of swift, precise movements. The exchange was brief. The short-haired elf found an opening and struck, sending Shii to the ground with a thud. She offered a quick apology for the decisive blow. Back in the present, with Shii seemingly out of commission on the ground, her partner faced Rei. She told Rei to be grateful that the princess had covered for her, because now it was her turn to fight. As Rei lunged forward, her attack was brought to a sudden, jarring halt. She felt something snag her boot, stopping her dead in her tracks. The source of the obstruction was Shii. Lying on the ground, she had wrapped a strap around Rei's ankle, pulling it taut. With a smirk, she chided Rei for counting her out of the fight so easily. The trap was sprung. Immobilized and vulnerable, Rei could only watch as the other archer's eyes widened in realization. The situation had suddenly become dire. With her target held fast, the short-haired elf surged forward, delivering a fierce and decisive strike that slammed into the defenseless Rei. Estemel lunges forward, her blade a blur. Lapis meets the attack head-on, their weapons clashing with explosive force. The impact shatters the ground beneath them, and Lapis cries out as the blow connects with her arm. The result of their clash is announced. Lapis shouts in defiance, as Snow calmly observes. With simultaneous valid strikes from both combatants, the match is officially declared draw. With the match concluded, Lapis rubs her sore arm, wincing. Estemel, leaning on her weapon, concedes that it was a draw and offers a compliment, telling her opponent, "Not bad. little sis. She continues, thanking Lapis and admitting it has been a while since her blood boiled with such excitement. In response, Lapis seems to soften, apologizing for her own rudeness up until that point. This display of sportsmanship is watched by Shii, who remarks on how stubborn they both are before asking if Lapis is alright. The two former opponents now clasp hands firmly, a shared smile of mutual respect on their faces. Watching from a distance, Hiro sighs in relief, admitting he was worried Lapis might have gotten her face deformed from hardfall. Lapis blushes, thanking Rei for covering for her, while Rei scolds Hiro for making jokes while Lapis is still hurt. He ignores the scolding and grabs Lapis by her hood, asking if she's looking to get beaten to a pulp and telling her not to act tough. Lapis retorts that Rei told her to use her abilities. Hiro counters that he's counting on her as the main tank, a title Lapis threatens to respond to with a fist to his face. Their argument is cut short as Mir launches a sudden, vicious attack from the side, her blade aimed squarely at Lapis. Hiro can only watch in shock, realizing the signal for the next match hasn't even been given yet. As the assassin readies another strike, Lapis stands her ground. She makes a formal declaration, announcing her full name and title. I, Lapis Crew La Lamette, and the princess of the holy capital Alphia. She finishes her declaration by stating that she and Hiro are now teammates, warning him not to treat her like a shield. Taken aback, Hiro quickly agrees, saying he doesn't want his face rearranged. Watching them, Shii smiles, thinking that a signal is no longer necessary. He pats the air beside him, anticipating her move. Just as he predicted, Mir lunges from the shadows, her blade slicing through the space he just occupied. He remarks on her preference for attacking from behind. In response to his evasion, Mir cries out, calling his tactic underhanded. Before she can press the attack, another figure, the elf Shii, leaps between them, twirling a staff to intercept her. She and Hiro move as one, a seamless combination. As they pass, he gives her hand a quick tap, a silent signal passing between them. Their coordinated assault unfolds across the arena, a chaotic dance of four combatants. From the sidelines, Estemmel and Rei watch the display. Rei notes that Hiro and Shii are perfectly in sync, switching between offense and defense while covering each other's backs. Estemmel adds that with Mir's strong sense of loyalty, she can't attack her own teammate carelessly. Mir presses forward, her eyes narrowed in concentration, blade held at the ready. In response, Hiro's hands remain open, poised for the next exchange. A faint blush dusts Shii's cheeks as she glances towards her partner, a look of exhilaration in her eyes. He returns the look with a confident, knowing smile. Watching the fluid teamwork from a distance, Lapis has a sudden realization. She murmurs to herself that this is just like dance. The thought is echoed by Hiro himself as he and Shii weave around Mir's attacks. He calls out to his opponent, comparing their combat to a dance. He responds to Shii's call as their coordinated attack continues. The force of their assault sends Mir's weapon clattering to the ground. Stunned by their success, Hiro stares wide-eyed at his disarmed opponent. He presses the advantage, lunging forward to strike the vulnerable Mir while she is still on one knee. The disarmed assassin, however, is not finished. She swiftly draws a hidden dagger, her sudden move catching both Shii and the observing Estemmel by surprise. She pivots and slices a Hiro's back as he moves past her. From the sidelines, Estemmel closes her eyes and calmly declares that a point has been scored. The friendly match concludes. Shii, exasperated, lightly pummels Hiro's head, complaining that they would have won if his attack had landed. He sheepishly apologizes, claiming his foot slipped. He protests loudly, shouting that her blows hurt and questioning if she thinks he is a drum. In the background, Estemmel watches their exchange without a word. As they bicker, Estemmel's expression remains stern and contemplative. The young maid, Snow, approaches her quietly, offering a towel and addressing her formally as Rei-sama. Her gaze remains distant, lost in a single, troubling thought. Why? Elsewhere, in a well-appointed kitchen, Yamada Teru stirs a large pot while wearing an apron. A young elf boy gives him a thumbs up, declaring the Japanese curry to be the finest. Yamada smiles, pleased, admitting that he's simply melted down a store-bought roux. He reflects on his current situation as Snow serves Shii and another elf girl at the dining table. The maids, he notes, opened the kitchen for him and even helped set the table. He finds it hard to believe, considering how much he was hated right after he reincarnated. The day after the dinner with Hiro, the maid Snow reports to Rei. She explains that after Hiro apologized to her fellow maids, their opinion of him improved significantly, shifting from negative to a neutral standing. Snow thoughtfully adds that things do, in fact, change. She listens with a serious expression, observing how close everyone seems to have become. As Rei and Snow depart, Yamada Teru, who is busy cooking, notices them leaving and asks Lapis what their visit was about. Lapis, resting her chin on her hand, casually guesses that perhaps Rei just wanted to know what was for dinner. This brings to mind the previous night's meal, where Lapis presented Hiro with a plate of curry. When he demanded a hamburger steak instead, she firmly told him that as someone who lost while on the same team, he had no right to make demands. Back in the present, Lapis leans in close to Yamada, questioning his familiar tone and reminding him that she is a princess. Amused, Yamada wonders to himself when exactly she started treating him like a friend. Her attention then shifts to Muir, who is sitting dejectedly in a corner. Lapis asks why she's in such a bad mood. Yamada, without turning from the stove, reassures her that it's fine because Muir loves curry, and that Japanese curry is unbeatable. He speculates that she's likely just tired from having to fight two people at once, and internally apologizes to Hiro for the trouble. Lapis explains that everyone from the Mikage Archers is kind, but they are extremely overprotective of her. She apologizes, feeling that they are the ones who barged in and caused him so much trouble. Yamada, however, tells her not to worry, assuring her that he understands completely. He continues, admitting that he finds their hostility reasonable, even likable. With a smirk, he adds that since he had the chance to admire a princess's naked body, he considers them even. Flustered, Lapis shouts for him to erase that memory immediately. He dismisses the topic with a smile. Lapis, regaining her composure, gives him a thumbs up and suggests that from now on, they should get along. Then, she calmly instructs him to leave the villa. She points a trembling finger, her voice cracking with emotion as she commands him to never come back. Her outburst is met not with anger, but with a gentle smile from Yamada Teru. As Hiro Sanjo looks on, Lapis tries to explain that she has her own circumstances and that his continued presence is genuinely causing her trouble. Hiro clarifies her point, adding that she has something she wants to protect, and it isn't Yamada. The implication of Hiro's words shatters his composure. Yamada's smile vanishes, replaced by a look of genuine shock as he asks if she truly hates him that much. Seeing his distress, she immediately tries to correct the misunderstanding. With tears welling in her eyes, Lapis confesses that outside of the holy capital Alpheum, she has no friends at all. She explains that Hiro has always been kind to her, even after the terrible things she said when they first met, and that is why she feels so strongly. Her emotional confession is cut short as a horde of cloaked Mikage archers materializes around Yamada, their weapons drawn and aimed directly at him. Horrified, Lapis waves her hands frantically, shouting that it was all just a joke and that he is welcome to stay. She insists he isn't a bother at all, her face a mask of tearful panic. She continues to explain, wiping away tears, admitting that she was taught to be wary of men and didn't know Hiro well back then. Now, however, she insists it's fine. Yamada, sweating with multiple blades still pressed against him, tries to reason with her, pointing out that she of all people should know what men in this world are like. She looks at him with a gentle, resolute expression. It doesn't matter if Hiro is a boy or a girl, she states with conviction. Hiro is Hiro. In the background, having had enough, Yamada tells Hiro to just get out already. He walks away down a long, ornate hallway, pondering his dilemma. Making a heroine cry goes against his principles, but now the Mikage archers will surely be after him. As he wonders what to do, he spots Sanjo Rei at the far end of the corridor. She notes to herself that the path ahead should lead to her destination. He follows her up a ladder and through a hatch, emerging onto a stargazing deck complete with a large telescope. He looks around the stylish room on the third floor, noting that there shouldn't be any events scheduled here. Turning to Rei, he asks directly if she needs something from him. He stood before Rei, who coolly asked if he had been tailing her. If he had business, she stated he should speak up. After a moment of his hesitation, she gestured for him to sit beside her on the bench, an invitation he silently accepted. She ran a hand through her damp hair, remarking that she was fresh out of the bath. Flustered by her casual demeanor, he could only stammer out a question. Why? His gaze sharpened as he posed the real question that had been on his mind. Did you miss on purpose? She calmly acknowledged that he had noticed. He ran a hand through his hair, confirming with a flustered yes. I saw it. He began to explain what he saw, recalling the moment he was about to strike the masked elf, Mirror. He described the look on her face as one that suggested the end of the world, a realization that if she lost, even he could get close to Lapis. He admitted to Rei that he found such devotion admirable, leaving her perplexed. He stated plainly that he lost the fight. When Rei confessed she didn't understand, he laughed, exclaiming that he figured as much, guessing she hadn't reached that state of mind yet. He continued, predicting that she would understand one day, because she too would welcome a wife she could truly trust. The statement caught her off guard, and she began to protest. He cut her off, clarifying his true meaning. He warned her not to trust anyone. Not the great aunt who forced the name Sanjo Rei upon her, not the foster parents who offered false love, nor the relatives who bought her affection. The girl known as Sanjo Rei, he began to explain, was someone else entirely. Her story, as he recounted it, was one of tragedy. Dragged into the darkness of the Sanjo family as a child, she was used without understanding why. Taken in by relatives as a successor, she endured relentless training, punishment from the main family, and harassment from jealous branch families. Even her own elder brother, Hiro, exploited her for his own ambitions. In such an environment, he explained, it was impossible for her to ever place her trust in another. He concluded that Hiro is trash, and it's no wonder he's hated, a fact that he claimed works out fine for him. He then turned to Rei, whose composure had finally broken, tears streaming down her face. You too, he said softly, but still, he watched her, understanding the source of her outburst. Rei declared she couldn't trust him, but he saw it for what it was, a rejection reflex, a defense mechanism built to protect herself after giving up on trusting anyone. He wondered what could have pushed her to this point. The memories flooded back for Rei as she clutched her head in anguish. She questioned the very concept of family, recalling how she had trusted them repeatedly, only to realize that every single one of them was just using her. Her anguish erupted into fury. She lunged towards him, her voice filled with accusation, questioning if he had ever truly saved her. Not even once. She demanded he stop pretending to be a good person, shouting that it was far too late for that now. With that, she turned and fled the room. He reached out, shouting her name and pleading for her to wait, but she was already gone. He clenched his fist, forcing himself to remain calm. Elsewhere, Hiro Sanjo observed the situation with concern. He mused that in the ideal version of events, the protagonist would be the one to save Rei from the Sanjo family. He worried that if his own game persona, Sanjo Hiro, were to get involved, the perfect story he envisioned would be ruined. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Yamada Teru, who approached with a confident smirk. A young maid named Snow bowed deeply before him. Yamada confirmed his suspicions, stating that she had indeed been serving as the Sanjo family's maid. Hiro watched the exchange, taken aback. The maid looked up, her expression unreadable. Addressing Yamada as Hiro-sama, she announced that she had a request, her true feelings and intentions still a mystery. 1 week has passed since Hiro Sanjo's practice match with Rei. He walks through the city, recalling her request from that day. With a serious expression, she had asked him to have a meal with her on the upcoming Saturday, presenting him with a Sanjo Group VIP members card. The young maid, Snow, stood by silently. He wonders why Rei looked so grave and why she specified a restaurant run by her own family as he heads toward the designated location. However, his current situation is far from what he expected. He finds himself walking with the elven princess, Lapis, who clings happily to his arm. He internally questions how things ended up this way, feeling her closeness is more than what one would expect from mere friends. As they continue down the bustling street, Lapis breaks the silence, asking him what they should do for lunch and if he has any favorite foods. He struggles to process everything, his mind racing to sort out the situation. When pressed for favorite food, he blankly suggests lilies or flowers, causing Lapis to ask if he eats them. His brain feels like it's shutting down. Finally, he confronts her directly, asking why she's clinging to him like a duckling. She immediately challenges him, asking if he has a problem with her. Playful demeanor vanishes, replaced by a serious gaze. She addresses him by name, expressing disbelief that he would actually say something like that to her. She leans in closer, explaining her reasoning. She accuses him of going off to have a solo date, without even thinking to invite her, despite her being bored at home. Furthermore, she reminds him that due to a certain mistake of his, she ended up losing to her own subordinate, Mikage Archer. Therefore, she concludes, he must now take responsibility and entertain a spoiled princess. Hiro panics, exclaiming that the Mikage Archers would kill him if they found out he was on a date with the princess. Lapis cheerfully dismisses his concern, declaring that's precisely why she came in disguise. Unseen by them, Sanjo Hiro watches from a distance, remarking to himself that Lapis hasn't changed since their dungeon days and questioning if she even understands the concept of a disguise. Lapis, oblivious to their observer, teases him for getting flustered just from linking arms, calling him cute. She then poses a question, asking if linking arms is really something only lovers do, her expression turning slightly more serious. He insists that it's still crossing a line, worried about what might happen if people start suspecting they're in a relationship. She scoffs at the idea, declaring that a relationship between a man and a woman like them is impossible. She reasons that, at most, onlookers would just assume she was linking arms with a girl dressed in men's clothes. Gesturing to the couples around them, she points out that everyone else is linking arms and flirting, too. She explains that while this everyday life feels strange due to her memories of a past life in a Yuri game world, she still respects Hiro as a person. Amused, Hiro accepts her interest as long as it remains a topic of conversation and asks what her highness would like to do. He suggests they grab lunch at a restaurant. Lapis agrees, noting they need to prepare for the academy soon, but decides that getting new clothes should be their first priority. He confidently leads her to an impressive, modern skyscraper, boasting that as the heir of the Sanjo family, he will treat her to anything she desires. Lapis seems taken aback by his sudden display of confidence. Their path is blocked by a receptionist at a desk bearing the Sanjo Group logo. With a polite bow, she informs them that individuals with a score of 0 are not permitted inside, and asks them to leave. Hiro is stunned. He protests that he is from the Sanjo family, and even presents a membership card. But the receptionist remains firm, stating they cannot accept it and repeating her request for them to leave. His failure leaves him utterly dejected, slumping over in shame. Lapis attempts to console him, saying that as a princess, she is sick of fancy restaurants anyway, and that fast food would be fine. She tries to persuade him to go somewhere else, but Hiro remains fixated on the issue. He asks Lapis why it's so important to enter this specific shop, then suggests a workaround. Just tell them her score is 30,000. He insists, explaining that being turned away from his own family's establishment is simply too humiliating. Just then, a calm voice tells him there's no need to be embarrassed. Hiro turns to see Sanjo Hiro and his guards have arrived. The group that has arrived is Sanjo Rei's entourage. She stands at the center, arms crossed with a stern expression, flanked by Sanjo Hiro and her other guards. Hiro Sanjo stares, uttering her name in disbelief. He turns to Lapis, telling her not to worry and asking her to wait outside for about an hour. She gives him a bright, cheerful smile and agrees. She was told in no uncertain terms to stay back. Hiro warned her to keep her magic catalyst device away, declaring that he would cause trouble. He then turned his attention elsewhere, asking someone if they would have a meal with him next Saturday, acknowledging the strangeness of the request, but clarifying it was for himself. Meanwhile, inside, the young maid Snow knelt before her mistress. She pleaded with Rei-sama, her voice trembling as she explained that there was no one else she could possibly rely on. Her plea intensified into a desperate cry, tears streaming down her face as she begged for someone to be saved. Hiro watched, his mind racing. He recognized this moment. It was a pivotal event from the game scenario, one the protagonist was meant to face. As Sanjo Hiro, he knew he shouldn't get involved. But he also knew that if he did nothing, Rei would suffer a deep wound before even entering the academy. He understood how the story was supposed to go, but the reality of it was jarring. Could he really stand by and allow something like that to happen? His resolve hardened into a defiant glare. No, he would not betray himself. He stepped forward past the kneeling maid. Even having become Sanjo Hiro, there was one principle that could never be compromised. He gently placed a hand on Snow's head, causing her to look up from her despair. He patted her head reassuringly. "Snow," he said with firm resolve. "Leave it to me." The young maid stared up at him, her eyes wide and brimming with tears, a mixture of shock and nascent hope dawning on her face. His promise did little to immediately soothe her terror. Snow could only cover her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she watched the grim scene unfold. Beside her, Rei wore a look of profound sadness, seemingly resigned to a future filled with sorrow. But from his vantage point, Hiro refused to accept such an outcome. He thought of the world's laws, and how he would bend them if necessary. For in his mind, tears had no place in Yuri's life. A holographic call interface materialized from the device in his hand as he solidified his resolve, declaring with absolute certainty that he would not allow this tragic future to pass. Within a domineering Japanese Western hybrid restaurant, a sterile and imposing space, a tense meeting is underway. The air is thick with unspoken authority. A voice cuts through the silence, addressing Sanjo Rei by name. It reminds her that this is a topic they have discussed time and again. Her head is bowed, her hair obscuring her expression. The speaker is revealed to be her great-aunt, an elderly woman seated formally at the head of a long table. She commands Rei to behave in a way that befits a woman of the Sanjo family. She looks up, addressing the matriarch as great-aunt, and begins to speak with all due respect, standing alone before the vast, empty dining arrangement. Her words are cut short by another family elder, a man with a severe expression. He states that lately, she has become awfully taken with Hiro. Rei asks what about her conduct displeases him, but her voice falters, her gaze falling to the floor. The great aunt confirms to her attendant that they were, in fact, keeping an eye on Hiro. She dismisses his behavior as strange, but ultimately nothing worth paying attention to. The man interjects, declaring that the real problem is Rei herself. He calls her decision to spend the night at the villa a disgraceful blunder, and notes that her behavior changed entirely after that dinner gathering. He continues his sharp questioning, revealing he knows she kept the bandage Hiro gave her. He scoffs at the idea she could be happy over such a thing, and warns her that letting her guard down around that fool is tantamount to losing her mind. Rei remains silent, her face a mask of turmoil. His voice hardens as he declares that as the future head of the Sanjo family, her carelessness cannot be overlooked. He proclaims that she needs discipline. On his word, two attendants seize her, violently forcing her head down onto the table. The great aunt watches, affirming that this is how things are done in the Sanjo family. Held fast by the attendants, Rei has a stark realization. Her own choices have never existed. Below, the great aunt looks at the spilled food on the floor and coldly tells her to go ahead and eat, reminding her that she is utterly alone. She drifts back to a memory, a time when she was a small child, greeting a pufferfish in a pond with a simple, innocent head. In that memory, she stands alone on a wooden bridge crossing a koi pond in a grand estate, clutching a stuffed animal and asking the world, "Will you be my family?" The main Sanjo family had no female heir, and so she, a young child without parents, was chosen to fill that void. She was brought from a facility to the Sanjo estate, a small girl with a backpack, met by the cold gazes of the family elders. Her arrival was met with immediate disdain from two maids, who looked her over and commented on her filthy hair and face as she clutched her teddy bear. Without a word, one of the maids took the sneakers from her feet and tossed them unceremoniously into a waste bin. The girl cried out in protest, demanding to know why they were throwing away the sneakers she had gotten from her mother. She pleaded for them back, but a maid coldly informed her that as the future head of the main family, she could not wear things belonging to common folk. The woman who brought her simply turned and walked away. The great aunt dismissed the woman, stating the girl was no longer within her reach. This, Rei remembers, is the story of how she, an outsider, became Sanjo Rei. From that day forward, the Sanjo family bound her with iron rules, controlling her clothing, hairstyle, mannerisms, schedule, and lessons. Her old life was over. She recalls how every detail of etiquette was drilled into her, with specific, rigid rules like sitting exactly 16 sun from the edge of the tatami. The slightest failure would result in punishment, and any failure was met with harsh scoldings from the main house, the branch families, and the instructors. She endured gasps of disapproval, screams of anger, and the sharp pain of her hair being yanked. Above all the noise, the voice of her great aunt was the most cutting. The old woman declared that Rei was a woman of the Sanjo family, nothing more and certainly nothing less. This identity was a heavy burden. She was told that for a filthy girl like her to survive in that house, she had to acquire refinement, wisdom, and a proper way of living. The physical punishments were a direct assault on her past. The face her biological mother had praised was slapped, and the hair her father had cherished was yanked. She hated it more than anything. Lying on the floor in that exact prescribed spot, she came to a devastating realization. Every source of happiness she had ever known, every bit of joy she had ever felt, had come from her real parents. But they were gone. With that thought, a desperate question formed in her mind. How was she supposed to find happiness from now on? Just as despair began to set in, a faint sign of it suddenly appeared. It was a lonely koi fish in the estate's pond, one with a distinct heart-shaped pattern on its back. She saw a kindred spirit in its frightened eyes, a reflection of her own. The pond became a refuge. She would often go there to confide her innermost feelings to the koi, whom she thought of as a girl and a good listener. With this secret friend, she found the strength to endure. She believed that as long as her friend was there, she could keep living, and that the koi would surely bring her happiness. But that belief was shattered in an instant as she watched in horror, the water erupting as her only friend was violently taken from her. The lifeless body of her only friend floated on the water's surface, its white belly turned towards the sky as other fish nibbled at the remains. The sight was reflected in her wide, horrified eyes, the trauma of the moment etched upon her face. Her shock was met with a cold lesson from her great aunt, who chided the young girl for being a fool. The woman stated that Ray had been looking at things the wrong way and warned her not to think she could inherit the house so easily. In that moment, Ray understood. She realized this was not a world that the ordinary Ray should see, and so she performed. On a grand stage, under a spotlight, her fingers danced across the keys of a piano, producing flawless music. She learned to present the perfect image, a carefully constructed persona. This was the world as it should be seen from the perspective of Ray of the Sanjo family. This new persona moved with flawless precision. With a perfect set list, she brought the hall to life. She wore a beautiful smile, shown from the most flattering angle, as she entertained guests and moved from one conversation to the next without pause. Walking straight, chest held high, she moved like a perfectly calibrated machine, silently asking herself if she was doing it well. But the mechanical perfection suddenly faltered. A voice cut through the air, remarking with amusement that she was pretty clumsy. The voice belonged to a strange pair, a tall man cloaked in shadow and a small girl in a frilly dress. The girl offered her praise, comparing Ray to a mechanical doll that could dance without a will of its own. With a chilling smile, the girl added that she envied her. Confused, Ray could only ask what she was talking about. The man in the shadows then spoke, his strange, skeletal hand partially covering his mouth. Addressing her as Little Lady, he claimed that he could see she already knew. His words pierced her facade, revealing the truth of her existence. In her mind, she was nothing more than a marionette, her every move manipulated by an unseen version of herself. She was merely playing the role of Ray of the Sanjo family, controlled by those puppet strings. He continued, his voice cutting through her thoughts. He acknowledged that her performance was good enough, but the manipulation was still clumsy and rough. Only he and his companion, he asserted, could see the strings. And yet, despite his critique, the marionette persona had always been incredibly well received. In her memories, everyone praised her beauty, applauded her flawless performances, and showered her with accolades. This was the happiness prescribed for Ray of the Sanjo family. A life of perfect, smiling acceptance. She had believed that if she just kept pulling the strings of this persona, she could live easily. But a dissonance had started long ago. It began with whispers in the halls, rumors about her older brother. Voices would murmur about Hiro again, questioning if something could be done about that nuisance. The name echoed in her heart like static. Hiro, the boy who became her brother. Somewhere in the Sanjo bloodline, he existed. The whispers grew louder, questioning why the main family had ever given birth to a male. The root of her feelings traced back to an anime she watched while living with her parents. A character on screen declared that no matter who she was or what she did, she would always be his precious little sister. The anime brother then proclaimed that a brother's duty is to protect his sister, that he would always be by her side. Foolishly, she had clung to that sweet dream, a hope for true happiness. She wondered what kind of person her brother truly was. Perhaps, since he too was shunned by the Sanjo family, they could understand each other's hardships. She even imagined him praising her, telling her she had done well on her own. She recalled a time, long after she had stopped indulging in such fantasies, when a letter arrived addressed specifically to her. The letter was from her brother, Sanjo Hiro, sent on her 9th birthday. A flicker of warmth kindled in her heart, which had long grown cold, and she whispered his name. Her hopes, however, were swiftly dashed. After opening the wax-sealed envelope, she found it contained no birthday wishes, only a simple plea for money. The absurdity of it all sent her into a fit of wild, unrestrained laughter. She remembered the incident clearly. Her older brother, just as worthless as the rumors claimed, had tried to insert himself into a dungeon expedition she was planning with another girl from a branch family. He begged them for cash, promising to pay them back later, and tried to win them over by saying he wouldn't look down on them for being from a branch family. When his initial pleas were met with hesitation, his friendly facade crumbled. He reminded her of his status as the heir of the Sanjo family, his voice laced with menace. He warned that if a member of a branch family like her refused to help and made him look bad, even an idiot could figure out what would happen. The memory faded, replaced by a cold voice in the present. The voice told her that she now understood, that wishing for happiness would only lead to betrayal. Lying defeated on the floor, Rei heard her great aunt continue. The old woman explained that this very quality was the reason they had chosen her to be the next head of the family. She leaned closer, a twisted smile on her face, and declared that she was fond of Rei's clouded eyes. The words echoed in Rei's mind, reinforcing a bleak lesson she had learned long ago. No one is worth trusting, no one is worth giving affection to, and no one is worth loving yourself for. Her great aunt's voice pressed on, telling her that those eyes, which see the truth of the world, are what make her worthy of inheriting the Sanjo name. She urged Rei to sink even deeper, to push just a little more until she was complete. Elsewhere in the grand residence, an elevator ascended, its display lighting up the number 12 before chiming its arrival. The doors shattered as they parted, revealing a young man standing casually inside, a sheathed sword held loosely in one hand. His sudden appearance startled the great aunt, who uttered his name in disbelief. Hero. From the floor, Rei looked up, while one of the attendants stood ready with his own blade, as other guests murmured in confusion. The great aunt's expression hardened. She observed that he seemed to be enjoying himself and offered to call a car, curtly telling him to go home. Unfazed, Hero simply smiled, remarking on her coldness. He strode forward with casual disregard, his path taking him right through a finely set dining table. Plates and glasses crashed to the floor as he passed, and he called out, telling someone not to exclude him from the proceedings. With a final, deliberate stomp, he crushed a plate underfoot. Crouching amidst the mess, his sword resting on his shoulder, he grinned defiantly and declared his inclusion. This was the very image of Hero, defiant, arrogant, and fearless. A raid descends upon the Sanjo estate. Amid the chaos of an overturned banquet table, Sanjo Rei looks on in shock, calling out to Hero Sanjo, who stands ready with a weapon, his expression grim. The objective is clear, to sever Rei's ties to the family. Within the now conquered hall, the family's great aunt glares, her voice sharp with authority. She declares that he shouldn't even have the right to be present. Rei frantically confronts the other hero, demanding to know where Snow is and why he wasn't stopped. As he holds a woman captive, he coolly remarks that her score was being measured incorrectly. Meanwhile, Hero Sanjo appears with a cheerful grin, explaining that he was let through simply because he asked politely. He continues, speculating with a smirk that Snow is likely rummaging through the kitchen by now. He reveals his conclusion. Rei had made Snow his personal guard, believing it would ensure their secret dinner plans remained hidden. The truth about the maid, Snow, becomes painfully clear. Her actions, following them into the dungeon, keeping watch, were all contrary to Rei's intentions. It was all a ruse, her true purpose revealed upon being entrusted with a Sanjo Group VIP member's card. Internally, Snow scoffs at how obvious Yamada's plan was, vowing to smash it. This realization hits Rei with devastating force. Her face, smudged with dirt, contorts in anguish as she understands the depth of the betrayal. Snow had been assessing her all along, waiting for this very day. Back in the main hall, a Sanjo elder with a pompadour looks at the rival hero with disdain. He tells him to stop sitting there with a dumb look on his face and pour a drink for the handsome new arrival. The new arrival is Hero Sanjo, standing defiantly before the assembled family elders. He smirks, asking what's wrong and if the big shots are too stingy to even offer a guest a glass of water. His sarcastic request is met with a deliberate act of humiliation, as a full glass of water is poured directly onto his lap. The man with the pompadour smirks cruelly, having been the one to pour the drink. Hero flinches, a sound of frustration escaping him as the rival hero watches with cold satisfaction. A system notification appears, enhanced projection, amplifying the sensation of the insult. He grips the sheathed sword, energy crackling around his hand as the elder charges forward, enraged by what he perceives as cockiness. The resulting impact sends the man flying across the room, shattering furniture in his wake. Hero stands calmly after his swing, remarking that it was a home run. He reflects that he acted on pure instinct after Yuri was defiled, an action that leaves the great aunt staring in disbelief. Despite his outward calm, he assesses his dwindling resources. Having trained with his master that morning, he has barely any magic left. He recalls Lapis's voice, cheerfully noting he could handle one or two opponents but would be in trouble against a larger group, and realizes his opening move was far too provocative. His realization comes too late, as 4 attendants in dark suits immediately move to encircle him, their own blades drawn. A confident smirk plays on his lips as he accepts the challenge, pondering his next move in this escalating confrontation. Watching the standoff, the great aunt's expression hardens. She remarks to Sanjo Hero that she must keep her own unease hidden, complaining about the mess in front of their guests. Then, with absolute authority, she gives him a single, lethal command: kill him. The command hangs in the air. While Sanjo Hero's face remains a neutral mask, Hero Sanjo recoils, breaking into a cold sweat. He feels the sudden, overwhelming shift in the atmosphere, a palpable premonition of death. Even her own attendants are taken aback. The woman with the ponytail questions if eliminating him now isn't premature, while her male colleague points out that with the entire building under Sanjo control, they have countless other methods. But the great aunt is resolute, her focus entirely on the target. Her patience exhausted, she roars that a man who carries the Sanjo blood to its fullest potential has no place in this world. On her signal, an attendant activates a device. Instantly, a swirling mass of black energy erupts from the floor, a blinding dark attribute magic known as the shut-down darkness seal, and envelopes Hiro completely. The dark magic fills the room, a churning sphere of nothingness. Watching from the sidelines, Sanjo Rei is stunned. She has never seen her great aunt so furious, realizing with dread that this is a genuine attempt on Hiro's life. Her mind races, trying to make sense of the chaos. She thinks of Snow, believing that everything the maid has done has been for her protection. Yet, a question lingers from a memory of her brother asking her to take care of a young girl. She wonders why. Out of everyone, he chose that specific girl to entrust to her. She recalls the letter from her brother, Hiro, in which he asked her to look after someone. Some time has passed, and now that person, a young girl clutching a straw hat, stands before her, quietly introducing herself as Snow. She muses on the request, finding it odd that her brother would entrust such a timid-looking girl to her care. Her thoughts drift to a past encounter where a young man demanded to know their relationship. Snow had fearfully asked if she was being abandoned, but Rei cut the interrogation short, declaring that their connection didn't matter. Back in the present, as she walks through the estate, two women from a branch family toss a small object that strikes her in the back of the head before they walk off. The women turn back to confront her, one asking what her deal is. Before Rei can answer, Snow slides in front of her, defensively raising a pot lid as a makeshift shield. With a determined gaze, the young maid warns them that an act of injury toward the next head of the family will not be let off with a mere scolding. The women scoff, claiming she has no proof to snitch on them. In response, Snow reveals a small, active recording device, sighing in relief that her plan worked. Suddenly, Snow yelps, complaining that she was hit by the pebble they flicked. Rei asks if she is hurt, but Snow's focus is on the aggressors, declaring the branch family members unforgivable. Her anger shifts to glee as she brandishes the recorder, cheerfully suggesting she'll make a teary-eyed face to use as further evidence. A gentle smile forms on Rei's face as she realizes how much her life has changed since Snow arrived. Watching from a distance, another woman observes them. Having seen many calculating people, she recognizes Snow's genuine devotion. She concludes that by protecting Rei from harassment, Snow has become the only person in the entire Sanjo family who is truly on Rei's side. She lay in bed, looking up at the young maid who stood beside her. "Snow," she asked quietly, "why do you help me?" In response, Snow explained that she had made a promise to someone she loves to help Rei-sama. The young maid added that this person would one day come to help Rei as well, leaving her to wonder who that person could be. Her expression softened into a bright smile as she elaborated. This person was a hero, she declared, someone who was out there and would surely make Rei smile. The word hung in the air as Rei considered the maid's cryptic words, silently questioning who this hero could possibly be. Leaning closer, Snow whispered that it was not yet time, but that one day, Sanjo Hiro would be reborn. The statement left Rei utterly confused, unable to comprehend what Snow was talking about or how her brother could ever help her now. Elsewhere, a different kind of conflict was unfolding. An assailant in dark sunglasses drew a blade, and in a flash, a room was consumed by a burst of dark energy. From within the chaos, the attacker lunged, screaming for his target to die. Sanjo Hiro watched the descending blade, noting that shouting like that made the blinding attack pointless. He felt he should be using enhanced projection, but a strange feeling gave him pause. He sidestepped the blow with ease. The attacker's movements felt sluggish, and Hiro wondered if he was simply too accustomed to watching Estemel's superior swordsmanship. Another swing came, just as slow as the last. Hiro dodged again with minimal movement, realizing he didn't even need to use enhanced projection to handle this opponent. He paused, his mind racing. It occurred to him that this was his first real fight since training with his master. But as he spotted another foe lurking in the shadows, he knew that with his current strength, he couldn't take them all on individually. He needed to find a way to drop them all in one go. He hangs in the air, calculating his next move. He knows he can't fight every battle fully charged. If he moves inefficiently, he'll run out of fuel, and it will be over. He needs the most efficient spell he can use right now. A memory surfaces. He's glad he became aware of handling magic before entering the academy. With what he has left, he realizes this is his only option. He raises a hand, and a brilliant light orb materializes between him and his two assailants. The attackers sneer at the display. The man with the sunglasses declares that this fixation on visibility will be his downfall, urging him to tremble at what he sees and then die. However, he has a hidden trick for his magic catalyst device. He explains internally that he can alter the properties of an already active spell. By swapping the catalyst and reconnecting, he changes the light orb's function from generating a sphere to generating a bullet. With the spell modified, a confident smirk spreads across his face. He asks his opponents if they want to taste a fear they can actually see. The two attackers flinch, startled by his sudden change in demeanor. He unleashes the attack, roaring for it to blow them away. The light orb detonates in an explosive shot, engulfing the assassins in a blinding flash. The force of the blast rips through the villa. Elsewhere, the great aunt is startled by the sudden tremor, and Rei cries out as the shockwave shatters windows and dishes around her. Back at the epicenter, the ceiling gives way. Hiro leaps clear of the collapsing structure as his great aunt cries out in terror from the falling debris. Landing amidst the wreckage, he immediately calls out for Rei. She stares in shock, clutching a small item, and whispers Snow's name. Her mind flashes back to the words the maid spoke to her on a park bench, right before the friendly match with the elves. Her thoughts are interrupted as Snow appears before her. The maid calmly states that she has come with a report on the current state of the villa. Her attention was abruptly seized by the arrival of an imposing, shadowy figure in a tracksuit, carrying an unconscious girl over her shoulder. Rei stared, shocked, as she recognized the pointed ears of an elf. On the ground before her lay a shattered, fish-shaped object. Before she could process the scene, another woman with long, light hair and a confident smile addressed her directly. She introduced herself as Estemmel and confirmed Rei's identity as the younger sister of her beloved disciple, Sanjo Hiro. The elf girl, now conscious, laughed cheerfully at Rei's surprise. Rei's mind raced, recalling the newcomer's formidable titles. Estemmel, the highest-ranked magician known as Ancestor, and the strongest warrior of the elves. The idea of Hiro being her beloved disciple was baffling. The tall warrior in the tracksuit then spoke, explaining that even the elven capital of Alfheim had investigated Sanjo Hiro, finding only rotten rumors and a terrible reputation. She admitted that she couldn't entrust Lapis to such a man, but confessed that her opinion changed after they had crossed swords. She recalled her impression of him, a man driven by a deep purpose, trying to survive for reasons that seemed to go beyond simply being targeted by the Sanjo family. Estemmel then made a direct request, asking Rei to assist Hiro. Lapis eagerly chimed in, revealing they were about to have a sparring match at the villa, and inviting Rei to see for herself. She urged Rei to believe only what she could see with her own eyes, a sentiment Estemmel seemed to share. As Rei considered this, Snow spoke up, her expression unchanging. She stated that her own impression of Hiro had never wavered, affirming that people like him truly do exist in the world. Her words conjured a vivid image of Hiro in the midst of battle, leaping to defend the great aunt from two assailants. Snow's voice continued, describing him as someone who lives to keep others alive, to protect their smiles, and to risk his very life, as the Sanjo family crest shattered in the background. The vision showed him soaring through the wreckage, his blade descending upon a ninja-like foe. Snow asserted that such a person would surely be able to save her. The final words hung in the air as the image of Hiro's determined face, shielding another, faded. Her eyes widened, the name Reisama echoing in her ears as she processed the scene before her. The voice belonged to Snow, who stood beside Esichai with unwavering certainty. She began to correct the prevailing notion, insisting that Sanjo Hiro was not what he seemed. Her words painted a picture of a transformed man, a vision of Hiro leaping into action, sword in hand, to shield an elf maiden from harm. He had, in her eyes, been reborn. This declaration brought forth a memory for Rei. She recalled a moment with Hiro, where he spoke with a newfound gravity, vowing that risking his life for someone named Yuri was the one thing he must do. As she looked at him then, a question formed in her mind. Since when had he become this strong?